It's funny when I'm recording before anyone arrives. All right, here we go. Good morning. Morning, guys. All right, let's give everyone a minute to arrive, to get settled. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Let's just give everyone a minute or two to get in the room. Are you guys hearing me okay?
Yeah, I hear you
All
fine.
right, great. Let's see. All right. All right. Looks like there's nobody waiting for me. I get so involved with the class sometimes that every now and then I leave someone stuck in the waiting room, the purgatory of Zoom. But I'm trying to make sure that that doesn't happen. Doesn't look like anybody's waiting right now, so I'm going to move forward. Good morning again, everyone. So, guys, listen. I do understand. 1 minute looks like just as I start to speak. There we go. Uh, I do understand. I say the same thing every week on this front, and I apologize for that. I do understand if your internet connections or anyone, individual's internet connection is unstable and that you find it's more stable with the video off. I'll be blunt, it's a massive inconvenience for me. And inconvenience is a light word, really, for it. But if there's nothing you can do, there's nothing you can do. So if the internet connection is less stable with your video camera, okay. If your video camera's broken, okay. If you're having a bad hair day, psh, that's not a reason to keep the camera off. I taught yesterday I looked like a clown, but if I don't think anyone would really want to hear me talk with a gray box. So I really like to exchange with you, right? Again, I know you told me, you told Tiffany. Tiffany's got a better memory for this type of thing. I don't. So she reminds me now and then if I worry about it. It helps me transact. Okay. Listen, I want to say address a few things, um, and also mention some real exciting stuff that's coming up. One thing I want to say right off the top was I kind of wanted everyone to see a little bit of the relationship between Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Animate, right? And it really didn't occur to me too late that I should have asked everybody with Creative Cloud to just get a copy, get Adobe Illustrator. And so here's the way it's going to work. I do have an Illustrator file that I'm going to show you. And in my ideal world, everyone would be able to join me using it. I also have a backup file of after that Illustrator artwork's already been moved into Animate for anyone who can't get their hands on Illustrator right now. And I know it's kind of late, but a lot of you have gotten very used to Creative Cloud in how to, get other programs. So I'm just going to say something quickly about all that. As I said, I have a workaround, right? Like maybe
No.
using remote access.
No, sorry.
You okay, Joseph?
Oh no, I was just checking the presidential election. I didn't notice that my mic was unmuted. I
Oh,
just saw that Pennsylvania flipped.
I've been
That's why.
hearing sounds like that for days.
No,
Ah!
I just saw that Pennsylvania flipped, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, I got to say, guys, yesterday I tried so hard with the class not to bring up politics.
Hmm.
But so many people in the class, my brain was only half working because the other half was all on who's going to lead the country. And I probably gave the worst lecture of the semester and wound up deleting it before I put it up on YouTube. So, we're just not going to go there. I do want to say though, like, New York is very democratic, but we have a percentage of people who lean the other way. So everyone's going to have mixed feelings, and I want to make sure everybody's comfortable. But for anyone who hasn't checked the news, um, Biden is in a small lead in 3 out of the 5 states. Suddenly in Pennsylvania, which he would win the presidency with Pennsylvania alone. Uh, so that's kind of interesting. Or the other 2 states, for people who, either which way you feel, it's just to stay informed. I'm going to drop that subject right now because anything could happen. It's 2020. Space aliens could land and just interrupt the whole election. So I'm going to move back to this. So listen, I want to say something. If you're comfortable with Creative Cloud, you might want to just load Illustrator right now. And I'm going to mention a couple quick ways to do it before I look at the handout and address some issues. I also want to address some issues that came up in emails that you guys sent me. But I'm going to share my screen for a moment, like right away. And I'm sharing the whole desktop so I can make a point. Now, obviously, I'm on a Mac, and not everybody's on a Mac, right? So there's going to be a variance. But everyone who's been who got Adobe Animate for themselves has the Creative Cloud app. So just a quick word, and forgive me if this is obvious to many of you. It's hard for me to tell, to be honest with you, what's obvious and what isn't in this regard. So just as quickly as I can and succinctly as I can. Adobe gives this app, Creative Cloud app. And the app is how you link to all the different software that they include in that suite, Creative Cloud. So the app is sort of the portal. If you got Photoshop for another class, or Adobe Premiere or Adobe Animate, like you've done for this class, you have access to the Creative Cloud app. And it could be in any number of places. If you know how to search your computer, you could always search it. I'm clicking this thing called Spotlight in the top right corner of the Mac. There are different search methods on Windows. But I just want to make my point. If I search Creative Cloud, maybe I don't have a shortcut to it. It's already showing me the Creative Cloud app, and I'm just going to double click it. So the one Mac method, if you don't see Creative Cloud somewhere where you can get to it, is to click that little magnifying glass way in the top right called Spotlight. I'm not an expert on Windows to the level where I could just say it without having Windows in front of me, but they have their own Explore option, right? As far as I remember, triggered in the lower left. And so if you don't see Creative Cloud app, you could just search it and open it. So I'm going to close this because I just want to make a point. The Creative Cloud app knows what software you already installed, and that's the first list. So I have a lot of stuff installed from the Creative Cloud app. It's also telling me that they're all ready to update, and I could just, ask it to update, right? But if you go further down, it's showing me more stuff that I didn't load that's part of Creative Cloud. This is where you'd probably find Adobe Illustrator, unless you already loaded it. Just give me a second. Just want to let somebody else in. So if you can, while I'm lecturing, before we get started, why not get a hold of Adobe Illustrator? So I just want to say again, for anyone who may have arrived late, that it would be terrific if you could load Adobe Illustrator today. If not, we'll work around it. I have a few workarounds for anyone who can't get at it, right? But the first thing you would do if you've been using Creative Cloud apps from your own computer is to search Creative Cloud, unless you have the link somewhere. Macs often have an icon at the very top that looks like 2 links, or C and C, Creative Cloud. It's up top right now. Mine keeps disappearing. So I just searched it. So again, one way to search on a Mac is to use this thing called Spotlight. It's in the top right, and it looks like a magnifying glass. On Windows, you'd have to find the search feature. I don't have Windows here. Right, somewhere in the lower left, or accessed from the lower left. We could always ask Tiffany to help if necessary. Find Creative Cloud and open it. So I just want to repeat, it's the app that runs the show for Adobe. So this is what I have installed. I don't really need it. This is what I don't have installed. So if you don't have Illustrator, it'd be down here. Click install, and you could join me a little later today when we need it, right? Um, Folks, I apologize. You know how I always send you guys this alert? It's a bulletin board alert that lets you know when we need software. And I neglected to do that this week. So that's very much my fault. If you can get it now, please do. If you can't, like I said, we'll work around it. Hey, can you guys give me some kind of feedback? Is anybody already doing this? You know, looking to see if they could load it.
I already have Illustrator on.
You already have Illustrator. That's great. Great, Callista. I see that thumbs up there. So you know, you can I'll probably ask again maybe 5-10 minutes from now just to see how that's going. So it's Adobe Illustrator that I'm talking about. Um, you know, I'm trying not to repeat myself as often. It's basically when I'm insecure whether I'm being understood or not. Teachers should be redundant. Say it once, say it twice, say it 3 times. By the third time, by the fourth time, you're like, Arr! But you know, I know you guys would be more satisfied to open it. You know, since I started there, let me just say a word or two about Illustrator. I'm in love with Illustrator, and I've been teaching Illustrator for 22 years. And do I always do my illustration for Adobe Animate there? You know, I used to. Uh, but Adobe Animate has just gotten so good. Its drawing tools have gotten so good that I do it less than I used to. But it is a common enough workflow. People get stuff from Photoshop, people get stuff from Illustrator. They each have their pluses. You know, I do want to say Photoshop is particularly hard on Illustrator. You'd have to, on Animate, because you can't edit any of it in Animate. You know, you'd have to have all your drawing, everything just right. And, you know, in Photoshop. And that means lots of positions. Today we're making someone walk, and there's a minimum of 4 positions involved. Could I do that from Photoshop? Absolutely, because it's just 4 positions. If I got them right, I could bring all 4 in from Photoshop. Thing is, if I do it in Illustrator, Animate can edit that artwork because they're very similar programs. So it's you know, a little more friendly. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. You know, we currently, I don't believe, have an all Illustrator class in our school, though I could be wrong about that. But those of you who like to draw, or those of you who want more 2D power as an illustrator as well as an animator, right? I would highly recommend learning Adobe Illustrator. It's the top of its kind of program by far. Anybody have any questions for me about Illustrator or the relationship between Illustrator, Photoshop, and Animate, let's say? No, you guys ask very few questions. All right, so it goes. All right, I don't have anyone locked out. I do want to look at the handout, and I want to say a couple quick things, but folks, I want to just address something right away, right? You know, I've been collecting homework in Google Drive, and you know, I wish Google was a little bit more helpful with the security options. You know, I like to let you guys drop stuff off, but I really would rather lock people out of opening each other's work. And that's kind of sad because frankly, I do like you having the opportunity to look. But if you've borrowed anyone else's work in this class in any way, or copied their work in any way, that's bad. You know, it's illegal and morally wrong to do that. You know, artists are the author and owner of their own work, unless they sell it to someone, and even then, there's arguable rights. So, and if anyone's had an issue with that, I'm going to make time to talk to you separately. Meaning, if your work's been copied or flat out stolen, right? I would like to discuss that with you. That's just not cool. And if you've done it, cease and desist. You know, maybe you're not aware of how those rules work. I don't want to bore you with it, right? Because it is a complicated issue. Why did it get complicated? Well, you know, I could draw the Mona Lisa legally because Da Vinci's long dead. You know, there's no owner of the copyright on that image of the Mona Lisa. I'm allowed to do that. And could I take out Mickey Mouse and use it? Disney would let me use it even though they own it, provided I did it with respect, or I did it in some way, transformed it, but they might not, and they don't have to. It's their owner. They're the owners. So whenever you produce something, you're the owner, right? So I'd like for people to be very careful about that. If I see it in the homework that anything's been copied, I'll be gentle the first time, tell that person who copied it what the rules are, so you don't get into legal problems and you don't get frowned upon by your entire community. But a second time, you're probably going to get suspended. I've had that happen at other schools. At Parsons, it happened, and that student was suspended for a year. I felt so bad about it. The same thing happened once at FIT, and I got the student who did it through it. And she was guilty as sin, but she had to be terrified enough to realize it's just not cool. All right, I don't want to come on heavy. Anybody have any question about that? Just out of curiosity, if not personal need? All right, listen, I'm going to screen share. And again, like I said, I do have somebody that I need to talk about it whose work may have been possibly plagiarized. And I'm going to make time to deal with that on the artist's behalf. All right, I am screen sharing. So I already have Illustrator, so I'm going to put this away for the moment. Hey, how many of you succeeded while I was talking finding Adobe Illustrator? One? Two of you have it? Guys, I'll look at my chat right now. If you already have it, let me know. You could use the reactions button on the bottom and give me a thumbs up. I do need some kind of feedback from you. Excellent, thank you. So I'm up to 5 people, right? I'm hoping the others are still looking. You search Creative Cloud, right? It won't be in the top field. It'll be a little further down for programs you haven't loaded. And just load it, it's included. 6 people. All right, more people showing, getting it. That's fantastic.
Marilla says she has to pay for it.
She shouldn't, Marilia. I'm not asking anyone to pay for anything. But one thing is that at this late date, a week 10, I really can't tech support people who are not comfortable with Creative Cloud. Tiffany, if there's any way you could support her via chat, please do. Find out what's up. But I can't really stop the class at this point. If you just arrived, I'm going to assume you had internet troubles getting here and not torture you. It's 20 after 9. And the thing that's torturous is, for me, I don't like leaving anybody out. And I know that the fault might not be yours. I'm going to wait for one more person to get in here. Folks, I got to move forward, but here's the idea. We're going to do a brief little visit to Illustrator today, right? If you can't get a hold of Adobe Illustrator, don't panic. But if you can, that would be great. And the best way to do that for mostly everyone is to search your computer for Creative Cloud. That's the app that got you Adobe Animate, and it's the app that'll open anything in Creative Cloud. If you have access to Animate right now, you probably have access to all of Creative Cloud, which includes Adobe Illustrator. So search Creative Cloud on your own computer. It's an app. Open it, scroll through till you see Adobe Illustrator, and load it. All right, we could talk more about this later because there's really too much. I'm spending a little bit too much time on it just now. I just want to check the chat since there's a lot of complexity going on this morning. See, a few people already have an Illustrator. Great. So I want to, just say something quickly to those of you who are already maybe fluent in Illustrator or getting off the ground in Illustrator or just scratch the surface in Illustrator. It's so damn cool. Oh my God. And really, I wish the school would, just give me an Illustrator class. In fact, what I'd like best would be an Illustrator for animation class. It would be an interesting thing to pursue because so much of this might involve drawing. So let me back up for a minute. People draw for animation in any number of ways. On paper and scanning everything, with stills of photographs, which is also really interesting, with collage, with Photoshop, with Illustrator, drawing all in Animate or in other programs, So don't get hung up on one thing. Yes, Jitaro.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you know the a famous old cartoon, Samurai Jack?
No, I don't.
You know, like
What about it?
when you brought up like Illustrator, like you made me think about that cartoon because like I mean like the interesting thing about that cartoon is that it was well, it had no lines and
It's called Samurai Jack.
Samurai Jack, yeah.
Yeah, give me a second here. I want to take a note of it. You got me interested.
I actually
Samurai Jack.
maybe try out.
Somebody, Callista's just chiming in via chat that she's a fan also. So
Yeah, I want to try like doing like something like a similar animation style as that cartoon because, well, like I said, there there are literally no lines. Like the characters have no lines, and even the background has no lines, and that is amazing.
yeah, well, I just want to say for the record, though, drawing in Illustrator is rather similar to drawing in anime. They share a lot. They're both vector programs. They're based on anchor points. Illustrator is the more sophisticated program in most people's point of view, but and I've always believed that too. But Adobe Animate has just really pulled up the slack and offered some really cool things. And now it's a little harder to say, to tell you the truth, which one's stronger. But they both let you work with line, strokes, or fills. So there really is no visual difference between the two. In any case, though, I do want to move forward. So again, don't get hung up on that one issue, right? I have stuff set up for all of us to be able to participate. I want to get right to the handout, though, so I could, move forward regarding that. Anyway, there are a lot of assets today, right? There's samples of things I want to discuss with you that you're probably going to want your own copies of. And there's a couple of files, including the Illustrator file that I mentioned, that a lot of us are going to use in class. There's a file called emergency backup for the people who don't have Illustrator. But right now, if you want to load the assets, now you can. If you want to wait till a little later, you also can, right? But we are going to need them for today. You can get them from here or the homepage. I want to say a little bit about late homework, and I'm going to be giving you updates on this weekly. You notice the first time I did this, this is all the homework so far. I've been crossing them out as they expire. It's not really reasonable to expect me to accept class 2 homework 2 months late, right? Or the class 3 homework, right? So almost every week, I'm going to cross one of these off, right? I might give an extra week for class 5 since I skipped a week back when it was first assigned. So here's the list of the homeworks that I'm still accepting. If you own any of those, you'd be wise to get to them sooner than later, especially class 5, which you might find easy right now. Just go back to the handout, read the box at the end, and do the homework. A 0 really impacts a grade. We're going to have probably 2 more homeworks, maybe more, this semester. So each homework is a big chunk of grade. So I'm not accepting class 2. I'm not accepting class 3. Now I want to say something about submitting the homeworks. Use the original name. And I would really want to show you guys something. There's 2 ways that I'll accept it, right? One is you'll follow the link, the same link I always give you for Google Drive. So I'm just showing you Google Drive here, right? I've never asked you to find the folders inside. So if you're giving me, homework 5, don't open this. Or I'd rather you don't. I want to tell you why. These orange ones have already been graded. I'm not going to open them again. So if you're giving me late work, the best shot you have is to put it in here. So go to Google Drive and then open this folder and drop the work in here. For whatever reason, just to make sure I see it, or simply just drop it loose. I'll accept that, and I'll put it in the right folder, right? But if you start putting it in old folders, I'm not going to find it. I can't go through those and look for everybody's work, right? So I just want to say I looked up through everything I had today, I didn't get to grade 3 homeworks, as you could, see, or the extra credits, which were really interesting. I'm glad that some of you did that. Big thumbs up for people who did the car project, really. And they were all worthwhile. If at all possible, at the end of today, when we're all like shot and can't do anything anymore, we might just take a random tour through those folders. All right. I really believe I should be spending more time sharing your homework with you. And I think I'm a little bit over the top with how many technologies I include in this class. So I'm going to try to make up for it in the 5 weeks we have left. That's all we have, 5 more weeks, right? So again, if you owe me work, you could put it in the late work folder. That'd be best. I'll always look at that, or just put it loose, right? Don't use the other subfolders, the red one or just loose. Any questions about late work? Anybody? Don't be shy. It's a weird year, so like if you're late, I'm not torturing anybody. I might at a different semester, but not the way things are, especially some people really took a long while to get the equipment you needed. So I'm pretty open-minded, within reason. All right, no questions. All right, let me get back to the handout. That's important stuff because I don't want anyone shocked. You give me all the work last week, I'm not going to accept it. That means you did no homework the whole semester. In all fairness, most of you do most of the work. So if you haven't visited Blackboard on your own time, visit 2, 3, and 5, and those are the ones that have been graded. If you want to give me a revision, I would allow revisions if you don't like your grade. Just put the new copy loose inside. 2, 3, and 5 have been graded. The video playlist, I always include the link just for anyone who might lose it. I do believe we're up to date. All the videos are up to date. And I just want to say something about getting help from Tiffany. Tiffany's here, but she's in the shadows today, like she's in the witness protection program. There she is. I should ask her more questions, and I'm going to do that next semester, just so people get used to Tiffany. I think people are slow to get tech support from someone they don't hear from very often. I'm just used to talking all the time. She's the only assistant I have, and I wish she could assist me in all classes. I would not point you to her if I did not have total confidence in her compassion, ability to listen, and to give clear answers and help. So if you need help, Tiffany, would you let me know if any of this is wrong? Can I ask you a quick question? Do they need the ID to get into Zoom for you?
They don't really need the ID. They just really need the link. But the ID is if they sign in, and you can sign in separately onto your Zoom account. And if you're trying to find the meeting, you could put the ID in.
All right.
If you don't have the link.
All right. So it sounds like you probably won't need it, but I included it anyway. So this is all the information I got from Tiffany. If you want to send her an email at any point, just to, she's open and just told me that if someone really needed another appointment, she'll see if she can do it. And she also said that she leaves Zoom open, the meeting open on these time slots, so you could just show up. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Right. So really, please take advantage of it if you need a hand. She's, I'm not flattering her or just to be nice. I really don't do that.
It's Sunday 1 to 2.
Is it? Oops.
Yeah.
Oops. And I thought.
No, it's actually 12 to 2.
12 to 2.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday. Everybody hear that? It's 12 to 2, not 1 to 3. I'm gonna have to change that. And my mind is so swimming. Tiffany, if you're feeling kind, can you send me an email about the correction?
Okay.
And make sure I make it on the next handout. Guys, I'm going to go through this quickly. Last week, I showed you 3 different ways to get information from Adobe about Animate. And this week, I just wanted to stress this one, which was acting very strange yesterday. So I'm going to click it today just to see if it behaves the way it did last time I mentioned it. It's funny how this did not work the same for another class. I cannot figure that out. Maybe Adobe's experimenting with it. What I love about this link is on the left, you could choose whatever program it is that you want to search. Because let's say all the tools, many of their tools have the pen tool, for example. So if you want to learn about the pen tool, which program is the one you want to learn about, you'd click here first, right, on this left column. And then you could ask anything you want, you know, like, oh, we did a bunch of motion tween recently. Oops. So I really just like how specific this is, you know, and it gives you videos, it gives you articles. You can look for the one that sounds most like what interests you. I think this is a terrific link. You might want to open it once and then save it somewhere where you can get at it. All right. I want to say something about that extra credit opportunity. That one, I'm going to leave that one open. It's extra credit. You know, I'm going to leave that one open. I don't know that I'll accept it last day. So you definitely want to get it to me in the next month, you know, if you want to do it. It's a challenge. But you know, 4 people took it on, succeeded, and it was exciting to see. All right. I want to switch to something, guys. So here we're beginning the new material, right? And if you didn't get today's assets yet, you want to do it right now. So I'm going to actually do that. Let me just check one quick thing. I always clean up a bunch of stuff right before class. All right. So I'm going to get today's assets. I'm going to open them. Let everybody got used to this in their own way right now. And I'm going to open up those assets. You know, I do want to say very quickly, you know, usually when we have assets, I say, oh, I don't recommend working in downloads. And I think by now everybody has heard me say that enough. But it's like, you know, really, it's a professional habit kind of thing. You download so often. It's just a big mess in there. You know, like I never check my mail. I got a basket of snail mail there. It's overwhelming, you know. You should move files you're going to work on somewhere smart. So I think I'm going to do that to be a good example. It's 2D Class 10 assets. I'm going to put mine on the desktop. Not the world's best place, but better than downloads. And then I'm going to open it up. I want to point something out before we just click around, right? Because it's large. You see, if you're on a Mac, you might be seeing these 2 yellow dots. If you're not, I'm interested in this one called Walker MyBridge. It's a JPEG, and our computers all open JPEGs differently. You could open in Preview if you're on a Mac, even in Photoshop if your computer's set up that way. I imagine Windows has its own kind of previewing. I'm just going to double click it. We'll see what that opens up with. So the one I'd like you to get a look at is Walker MyBridge. It's called Walker because he's walking. MyBridge is an incredibly famous photographer. And it says all because these are the positions that we're going to be working on very, very hard today. Give me a second there. What that picture was. Get that over. All right. All right, folks. For a moment, I just want to say something very quickly about MyBridge. I think there's a date on this. It's in the late 1800s. You know, photography was young and, you know, obviously a mind-blowing event for the arts and for culture at large, photography. But this guy studied motion, right? It is before the video camera or movie cameras, I should say. And he studied motion. And one thing that animators love about MyBridge is he studied animals and all kinds of motion. Like if you need to animate a cat and you're like, my cat moves too quickly, or you don't even have a cat, you can't figure out how they move. Look up MyBridge cat. You know, look up MyBridge anything. I'm going to come right back to this MyBridge. I just want to make a small point for us particularly, right? So MyBridge is well represented on the internet, despite how long ago he lived. And I'm just going to try MyBridge cat and just see if that actually works. Look at that. So you got any number of cat studies about how the cat moves. You know, it's incredible. You know, with some luck, I could find one that I could download. These are photographs, so there's no legal issue with you doing drawings based on these photographs. You know, at this point in time, I've never heard of any kind of real battle from photography to illustration. You know, there's probably some gray area there, right? So I want to get back to our concern because we're not animating cats. So if you notice, the way he's got this going here, there's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 poses, right? And the idea is 2 steps. So this is called a walk cycle. The subject today is walk cycle. And what is a cycle? So if you walk, you have to take a step with one leg, and I'm going to call this the near leg. I know it's a little hard to see with the light in my room, right? So that's the first step. And then the next leg, right? And that's a cycle. By the time each foot has taken a forward step, you've completed a cycle. So that basically means if you're walking down the block, you're just repeating those 2 essential movements, the one leg getting in front, then the next leg getting in front, and then you go back, so each leg takes a turn, but it's really, if it's a cycle, we're set up. Now, I want to say something to you about all this, right? One could literally do it drawing by drawing right on the main timeline, and sometimes you need to do that. What if your person's only taking a couple of steps and then they're sitting down? But if this person's walking at any length, then it's more like the bird flapping. It's more like the car with the turning wheels. If I make a graphic symbol in the library taking 2 steps, it loops. So it's just like step, 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 which basically means, so I'm saying, let me repeat that. If I make it a graphic symbol, right? So I'm talking about an animated graphic symbol that in the library takes 2 steps. I could put it on the timeline and tween it to walk across the stage. I could do that with classic tweening or motion tweening, either one. And it's just going to keep taking walks. Or I could have it stand still and walk and have the landscape come toward it, and it's going to feel like it's walking. So let's start here, though, since I already brought this up. Why did I point out the 4 in the red boxes? So guys, listen, some of you folks have gotten very serious about this, and I really want to give you a thumbs up, right? Really, like, again, I took just a tour of the homeworks that I haven't graded yet, and I was pretty encouraged by what I saw. This is closest to what a lot of you came here for, right? You really want to get to characters, right? And walking is one of the biggest deals. When you hear people talk about animation, they say walk cycle a lot. They say turnaround, right? They say lip syncing, to get the voice work. There are these like standard things you have to kind of deal with, and I'm going to get to as many of them as I can in the next few weeks. All right, I want you to study this one. You notice how I called it far leg contact, right? Let me see, maybe I could zoom in. Right. This guy here, far leg contact. Now, most people just call that position contact. So I want to explain what they mean. Contact means one of the legs makes contact with the ground in front, right? So if you're talking to an animator and they're saying, oh, contact, the contact pose, right? They're talking about a walk cycle, right? And there's 4 minimal poses. There's a minimum of 4 poses to pull it off. And I pointed out all 4 of the minimum poses. The first one is contact. So we're talking about the leg in front, right? Because we're talking in profile right now, right? We're looking at the side of somebody. The leg in front in this case is the guy's far leg. So guys, listen, I got to tell you something though. I'm the only one I know who uses this near leg, far leg distinction, but it's going to make it easier for us to be clear what we're doing. So all I mean is that this leg is nearer to us as the viewer. It's nearer to the camera that took this picture. The far leg is the first one to go. It's the one in the contact pose. All right, so once a leg, say in this case, the far leg makes contact, it's the other leg's job to pass it. So you'll notice in my bridge as we move over here and the back leg is bent now, the near leg, right? Then one near to us is bent. It's about to swing forward, right? The far leg made contact and now the whole body's pivoting on that leg. So the near leg now isn't really helping support this guy. It's lifting off the ground. And at the point where the knee passes the other leg, it's near leg passing. So there's 4 poses. There's contact passing and then another contact passing. So let me repeat this. If it's the far leg that makes contact first, right? So it's in front and it contacts the ground, right? Then it's the back leg that does the passing pose. So what is that back leg about to do? that the near leg, I should say, the one that's nearer to us, it's passing so that it can make contact. So now here's the near leg making contact. So if you compare it to the one above it, it's the same pose, but it's a different leg that's in front. This one here, it's the far leg making contact with the ground, and then beneath it, it's the near leg, the one closer to the camera, that's making contact with the ground. Notice how triangular, though, this position. And this kind of establishes the length of one step, which will help us with timing a little bit. So once the far leg made contact, the other leg, right, in this case, the one nearer to us, got in the passing pose so that it can make contact, right? So now it's the next leg's turn. The far leg again, right? Here's the far leg making passing. And the thing is, in this case, it's a little hard to see, right? But you could tell what's going on. The knee's bent and it's prepared to swing forward. And what's going to happen? Well, that far leg, right? It's the darker leg back there, is swinging forward so that it can make contact again. So here's the way the idea actually operates. I only need those 4 poses to describe somebody walking. There's 8 pose methods and even more, but this is the minimum, the good place to start. So once one leg makes contact, the other leg swings forward, and we describe that with what we call passing. The other leg passes. Then the leg that passed continues its path and makes contact. So it's done. And it's the other leg's turn. So this one here ends the cycle and it just repeats. It's a loop. I want to show you something about that. But before I do, does anyone have any questions about this particular MyBridge? I would say something to you, though, if you're excited about this kind of thing. I do recommend that you do 4 pose walk cycles, a few times, get the hang of it. And then you could upgrade and start using these poses in between. It'll make a much smoother, more natural animation. I want to show you a couple things today because we're going to spend 2 weeks on this, all right? So today we'll get a good taste, simpler. Next week, we're going to get a little bit more advanced about it. I'm going to put this one away, and I want to get back to my downloaded folder. And I wanted to compare that photographic analysis to this one beneath it, which is also a JPEG called Walk Cycle 4 Steps. So I'm going to open this one up also. The guy who drew this is very popular. I included some animations by him in the homework box, which we could talk about later. But what he did was here, this is just the 4 steps that I exactly parallel, right, to the 4 that had the boxes in the MyBridge. Notice how the far leg is in front. Now, of course, you could start in either leg, but today, all day, I'm going to start this way, right? So we don't get confused. That's the far leg. This one's not shaded or anything, so you have to really keep your eye on that so you don't get confused. So once that far leg makes contact with the ground, it's all about the back leg coming forward. Currently, I'm ignoring the arms, which we could talk about, and how the body responds to all of this. I'm just focusing on the legs. So here's a passing pose. Now, whoever drew this didn't use the term near leg and far leg, right? I'm using it today, right, so that we're very specific. The far leg makes contact, then it's the near leg's job to get in front. So it has the passing pose, and then it makes contact. The cycle ends then as the leg that started the whole thing starts to get back in front. So remember, the one with the bent knee, that's the passing pose. So the far leg is passing so that it can come back around, touch the ground again, right? Then the near leg starts to pass, it makes contact, right? Here it is on the ground, right? So then the far leg has to do its thing, passes again, comes back around, right? You see the logic of it? I'm so glad I peeked at the homework because you guys are the most poker-faced crowd I have. Thank you. Calista, you always help me out with those, even the emojis. And some of you guys chat me now and then. I really do appreciate it. All right, so let me put this aside. Let's get back to the handout for a second, right? I got a very kind of organized method here. I would like you to look at this little list. I don't know how many of you have a home printer, or I should say a home printer that works, because they just suck, home printers, really, by and large. But anyway, this might be a handout worth printing, keeping in a stash of notes. I don't know. Let's take a look at this. I broke this down, what we're discussing, in two ways to help clarify things, right? So it says here, contact, and I'm using the term leading foot here, right? I just mean the foot in front. It contacts the ground, right? So at that point, the whole body pivots on it, right? Whichever foot's on the ground. The next foot, which was trailing, tries to pass the current leading foot. It has the bent knee, right? Once it passes, it makes contact. So again, it's the second contact. It's the other leg, right? So it was just passing, but now it's the leading foot. It's in front and it contacts the ground, right? So of course, as soon as that happens, we alternate legs, right? This is the new trailing foot, right? And then it has to pass. So this is what we've been studying all along, but it's not really verifying which one's nearer to us and which one's further. So I just kind of repeated the idea in text here to be a little bit clarifying. Again, I'm sticking with the far foot, right? So it's the one further from the camera, further from your eyes. We're going to do it leading first. So it contacts the ground. That's the beginning of the cycle. This is going to be a drawing with the far leg in front. So then it's the other leg's turn, which would be the near leg in this scenario, right? And so it passes. It's got its bent leg. It's on its way forward. And as soon as the leg passes, the next drawing's about that same leg in a way, right? It finally makes contact. It's in front and it contacts the ground. And then the last step is the original leg starts to pass again. So it could just repeat. I don't really want to do these drawings over and over. So I'm particularly fond of putting them in a graphic symbol. Okay, now we're about to check out something in Illustrator, and this is what I'd like to say, right? If you just do not have access to Illustrator today, I have a plan, but what you really ought to do is just watch, take notes for a little while, because we're not going to be in Illustrator long. And then I have a way for you to join back in, right? I just want to stop. Yes.
So the drawings from Illustrator, since they're vectors, so they can pass on to anime without any problem.
That's pretty darn accurate. I have to say there's some funky little things one has to get used to, but by and large, yeah, they use very similar tools, and it's wonderful. And while we have it today, I'll try to give you a peek at it. Joseph, I think it was you who asked me more than once, about the difference between merge mode and object mode.
Mm-hmm.
So like one thing that's helpful to think about, Illustrator by default thinks in object mode, right? So shapes don't merge. You have to go out of your way to merge shapes in Illustrator.
Yeah, that's why I was having trouble at the beginning. I was so used to being an object.
Right. So next week, I'm going to focus on object mode. Just so that we can, return to that subject a little. So if you're an Illustrator user, or any of you intend to be an Illustrator user, their relationship is like object mode thinking. Things don't merge, so that's one thing to keep in mind. But yeah, they're very fluent. People move back and forth without really, it's common enough. But listen, I do want to say something, but I don't want anyone here to make you think that you have to do this. I would love to have a few of the teachers in the room at once, and everybody could talk about their different drawing methods. I doubt it's a very big player in 3D. Strangely, the teacher that I know best amongst the animators, because I have some history with, Jamal Sullivan, who teaches 3D here, he taught Illustrator elsewhere. He's very familiar with 2D. He didn't limit himself to one or the other. All right, so it goes. If you just arrived, you may have to watch for a little bit, because we're let me give Zach a chance here. If you just arrived, you may have to watch for a little bit, because I'd ask people who could to load Adobe Illustrator. We're only going to be using it for a very short time. If you know how to get to Creative Cloud and you haven't already, open up Creative Cloud, search it on your computer, find Adobe Illustrator and open it. Now, those who already did, watch with me. Hey, Ming Lang, are you okay? Can somebody nudge him? That's what I always say in the class. He fell asleep. All right, so it is. We can't do any pranks because we're in Zoom. All right, any case. All right, so. Okay, I'm going to just put this, actually, let's get to the folder. So if you have Illustrator loaded already, right, you should be able to just go to today's folder, find this particular file, give me a moment, and it says Illustrator Walk Cycle, Fall 2020. .ai is the extension for Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to double click it. While it opens, I'm just going to comment a little bit. So everybody in here has different levels of related experience. You know, some are big on software, some are big on drawing, some have other backgrounds that will kick in as valuable. But one could always open a program, do File menu open, and find one of its files to open, like Photoshop, File menu open, find a Photoshop file. Or one could just double click a file that's native. It'll open in its own program. All right. I'm just waiting a moment for something. I just want to give everyone a chance. Folks, listen, I got to thank everybody for being patient in my class and in other classes. You know, when you're the one whose internet is bothering you, you know, and you can't follow a class, you have to log out, log back in and all of that, you want compassion. And I'm aware that that happens very often, so I'm trying not to torture people who show up late. It's often because of something totally out of control. But to be compassionate to everyone who's already here, I could only repeat things a couple times, and now we're almost an hour into class. So if you just arrived, just get today's assets and try to watch what we're doing for now. So here's the Illustrator file, right? And I'm not going to spend a long time in Illustrator, but what I would like you to do, if the layers didn't open, let me just close up some stuff because Illustrator remembers the way you left it last time. So here's my Adobe Illustrator that's open, and I want to go to the window menu and find layers here. Now you'll notice that I named each of these layers, and this guy here looks like he's got too many arms and too many legs. So on the layer palette, again, you get that from the window menu layers, and you'll see this show up, right? They each have eyes, just like they do in Adobe Animate. I'm going to hide the bottom three. So here we are again. Here's far leg contact. And the far leg has made contact with the ground. So as I said, as soon as a leg makes contact with the ground in front, right, in front, it's the other leg that tries to swing forward, and we call that passing, right? So the far leg made contact, it's this leg, the one nearer to us, that has to pass. So let's hide this one, poke it in the eye, and give the other one an eye. So at this point, the near leg is starting to pass. It's bent at the knee, it's moving in front of the far leg leg's carrying this guy's weight, right? So once a leg is in the passing pose, it's heading to make contact. The next pose is going to be this leg, the near leg, making contact with the ground in front of the figure. So I'm going to hide this one and go to near leg contact. Notice I just went right in order. So I'm going to hide this one and show this one. So again, if you just drive, just watch. So in this particular case, the near leg has just made contact, right? And in a moment, his body weight's going to be on this leg. It's the far leg that has to pass, so it can get in front to propel him forward. So this leg's sort of done from our perspective. I want to see far leg passing. So I'm going to hide this layer and show this one. There's the far leg passing. So why just these four? Because as soon as the far leg passes, it's going to make contact with the ground. And I already have that up top. And that's why it's a cycle. Just these four over and over and over, right? So the far leg's in front. Body weight's on the leg that's already on the ground, but the far leg is shifting forward. I'm going to hide it and go back to the top. So in this drawing, I made the far leg and far arm dark, so it's easier to study. And I don't really want to comment much on the arms, but I'm going to quickly say something. the arms are generally in the opposite position. You know, if they're not doing anything like juggling or whatever. So if it's the far leg that's in front, then it's the near arm that's in front. You know, it's in the opposite position. And you'll see I did that each time. Well, this is harder to tell. They're sort of in the middle. So the far arm's in front, but it's the near leg that's in front. But let's just focus on the rest of it. Okay, I want to say something partially for Joseph, but several of you mentioned you already use Illustrator. So I just want to say a little bit about how this is arranged, right? I'm just going to hide three. I'm going to focus on this far leg contact pose. If I click on any of these here, right, I do have a black and a white arrow, right? In this program, the black arrow doesn't do as much as it does in Animate. You know, it moves things and stuff like that. It's the white arrow that often is the star. So you can see here, it's got anchor points like we've seen in Animate. I can click an anchor and change the shape. It's got a very cool pencil tool, which again, I just mentioning these things just to see if anyone's interested in it. The pencil tool could be found by pressing the letter N if one wanted to. You know, one thing that's kind of interesting in this program, I could select a shape with the black arrow or even the white arrow if I click inside, and then get the pencil tool, because the pencil tool will let me redraw shapes. So it's a nice feature. But right now we're not here to draw though. I just wanted to point out that since it uses similar tools, that's why the two programs behave so nicely. All right, we're ready to move though. So if you've got Illustrator open, make sure that you show all the layers for the next step. By the way, this is listed in great detail on today's handout, right? So it's going to be on the YouTube video. I would like everyone to notice that we started on Illustrator about 10 to 10. So it's about 50 minutes in because there was a lot to talk about today, right? If you do choose to want to come to that point later on YouTube, right? Open up the YouTube video and go 50 minutes in. You'll get right to the demonstration exercise. All right. So you're in Illustrator, and if you're not, just watch. That's okay. I got a plan for you. Those of you who are, please make sure all the eyes are here and select all. So Command A works in just about every program, or Control A if you're on Windows. So we've used it in Animate, and now we're using it here in Adobe Illustrator. Copy is also the same in all programs. So can you do Command C? If you don't like those shortcuts, use the Edit menu. Select menu says All. I prefer Command A or Control A on Windows. Once you see everything selected, right, you want to go to the Edit menu unless you like shortcuts to copy it. I'm going to hide Illustrator right now, right, because we're going to go to Animate, but I just want to stop for a moment. I do apologize we can't spend more time here. You know, I think my classes are already kind of dense, but I wouldn't mind spending a minute or two. Does anybody have any kind of Illustrator question? And I'll tell you whether I could fit in a response for you. Okay, so there are multiple methods since 4 or 5 of you use Illustrator, and we're going to try 2, one this week, one next week, to move artwork from one program to the other. This is the simple copy and paste method. It's pretty wonderful. Okay, so if you copied, you're ready to go back to Animate. Oh, we didn't even open Animate yet. So if you didn't open Animate, let's open Animate now. If it asks you about this font, it's a weird thing. Just click skip. I've loaded that font and it still asks me. It doesn't really need it. All right, we're back in Animate, right? Back home, so to speak, right? We want to open a new document. Some of you guys like using this, right? I always go to the File menu. So let's do File menu, New. I'm going to stick with the size we've been using for the last couple weeks. The one that's called HD. So that's 1280 wide, 720 tall. Definitely a frame rate of 24. You know, I want to say something about frame rate today. You're really going to feel the difference if you don't change that number. It's going to really, your timing is going to be completely different. Myself, I'm in the habit of 24. I believe in its value. I used it as a filmmaker before I got this involved in animation. But for animators, it has the advantage of less drawings to deal with, and it looks great. So for my class, I'm definitely going to ask you to stick with it. So 1280 wide, 720 tall, frame rate 24, definitely. Click create. Now I want everybody to do this, even if you didn't have Illustrator open. All right, I want to say something quickly to those of you who couldn't get a hold of Illustrator. Oh man, I feel so bad for Ming Lang. He's into this, but he just you woke up. Good morning, my friend. I don't know how much you missed, but hopefully you were dream learning. Okay. So for those of you who couldn't open Illustrator, give me a few minutes. I want you to watch these steps. I have another file I'm going to want you to open, but it's a little bit too soon, so just wait, right? I have a file that's at the next step as a backup, right? So those of you who got Illustrator open, right? The first thing I want you to try is to paste right now. Now that's not the best method, but I want everyone to see what would happen. Command V, right? Or edit menu paste. This should open up. Now, this is the like this paste importer window, right? And these are the defaults, and this is the way that I like it. I would like you to compare yours to mine. So you copied from another program, Illustrator. You came here to paste, and it recognizes it. It says paste as bitmap. Do not press paste as bitmap. That would turn it into like a photograph. It'd be pixel based. And Animate is not, so you wouldn't be able to edit anything, right? You could use it, but in a limited way. Don't click that. Paste using Adobe Illustrator file importer preferences. Well, that's pretty great. Yes, please do. Apply recommended settings, blah, blah. The thing that I really care about is that you make sure you don't check this one. And notice the one at the bottom, maintain layers. So bear with me for a second. If I am going to work in another program like Illustrator, I'll plan the layers out there. I want to come here and have my layers intact. So right now we're using maintain layers. There are other ways to look at it, but I want you to see how that's going to behave. So click OK. And you see the exact same drawing. And you also see these 4 layers. Now, guys who don't have Illustrator, try to stay alert, try to just notice what we're talking about. This is a slightly inferior method, I believe, to what I want to show you. And that's when you're going to jump in, right? Right now, I just want people to see this. So here's the issue, right? Illustrator worked well in layers. Remember, it's not a time-based program. And the reason people do this is in Illustrator, I could take my drawing, copy it to another layer, and change the limbs. Or change whatever I want. Copy that to a 3rd layer and change the limbs. 4th layer. But by the time I get here, I need them to play in time, right? So the layers are less important. I want you to try something with me. So right here, you could tell, in fact, can you hide the lower 3? This is the same way we did before. You could just poke the lower 3 in the eye. So we're just looking at the top layer here. It says far leg contact, same way it did in Illustrator. Quick word, especially to Joseph, but to others here. I'm an Illustrator now, and these are objects. So look, sorry, I'm in Animate now. The drawing came from Illustrator, but I could do the same thing here. I could use all the tools we got used to. These here are in object mode already. So that's pretty cool, though. I'm just making a quick point about how the programs are late. That's pretty awesome. All right, well, let me get back to my point. We want the other layers on the same timeline now, right? They came in layered. I wanted you to see that, but now I want to arrange it. How? I want to go by 3s, right? So I mean, skip 1, skip 2, and pop it in the 3rd. Watch this. I'm going to show the other layers. I'm going to the keyframe on near leg passing, and I'm pressing it. And I'm going skipping 1, skipping 2, and I'm putting it on the 3rd. I'm going by 3s. I'm going to go to the next layer down and do the same thing. I'm going to take this one, skipping one, skipping two, and I'm going to the third. And obviously I'm going to finish that off with the last one. I'm going to take this up here. Skip one, skip two, go to the third. Now, the timing is going to be important. And this frame is, this position only has one frame. The other is kind of own three. So in many cases, you're going to want to use F5 so that this has that extra space. So I'm going to skip one. I'm going to come here and I'm going to F5. And I hope you can see why that is. I'm going to zoom in a bit. Right. So here's one. It's got two spaces just sitting on screen. Here's the next position. Now it's got two spaces, right? Just waiting on screen, going by threes. And here's finally, this leg is in the front position and it hangs out, right? And then the next leg, the far leg, is in the passing pose.
So it's 4 frames per step?
It's actually 1, 2, 3 per pose. 3 per pose. Now, listen, I want to say though, in general though, that's not always going to be true.
No, I just saw the frames differently. It's because mine are smaller.
Yeah, I know that's confusing, right? I was playing with this feature down at the bottom of the timeline. It's kind of easier when you're alone. It's just, you look just real quickly. There's also this tiny little menu in the top right of the timeline. So lets you do things like that, make it taller. So I could actually make it taller and wider. But if that confuses you, probably don't. I'm going to go back to the way I just had it. That's here for the height of the layer. I'm going to leave it like this though. So there's 3 each. Just want to say in my demonstration, it really depends on all kinds of things, how the person's walking and how many drawings you actually did. We're working with 4 poses. It's going to be very different if you work with 8. We'll talk about that, and I have a sample for you. Right? Okay. Thing is, right now, you could bring the playhead back and just hit return. I'd like you to see how this behaves in something that loops. Why not open a quick Swift, right? Can you do Command return or Control enter? All right. I want to say a little bit because we have a lot left to do, but I hope there's some satisfaction there. I want to say a little bit. The human eye just insists on making sense out of things. You really only have to give it a little bit of support for it to believe stuff. So magicians use that idea all the time, to just support a given visual belief. So this is sort of a magic trick like that. We know that each of these positions is actually utterly still, and they're really on the timeline now for 3/24ths of a second, right? Since each frame, we're at 24 frame rate, right? So each one has got 3 frames. It's there for, frankly, an 1/8 of a second, each one. But my eye actually buys it. Doesn't look like modern Disney, though. Sure doesn't, because they're going to fill in the poses in between these, and something you're probably going to want to do down the road. But if you look at animations from the 70s, for example, the original Spider-Man animations, not Spider-Verse, but the original Spider-Man illustrations from the 70s, or the very famous Speed Racer, which was a vintage animation that kind of affected American animation, I think. It looks so Japanese. I always thought that it was an American thing that just affected anime. They really cut back, they really just needed to spit out those animations quickly. So they really were not doing loads of extra poses. They were figuring out what the minimum was. This is a 4-pose system. All right. We're not really ready for a break yet, but I just want to ask you guys how you doing. How's this feeling? Give me feedback in any form. Questions, thumbs, reactions, something. Everybody, give me some kind of feedback.
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Welcome.
Just that, and I think that it's like, would it be better if it were slower if there were more frames, or like cut a few frames in, like, saying leg passes, but put more frames in contact, or how would that work to make it like look slower?
Really good question. Really, the next thing to take on once this becomes comfortable is to really be able to study what's going on with both legs. So in the first pose, right, we call contact the leg in front, right? So here's contact for the far leg. right? And the back leg here is behind. And you get to the next frame, it's already here. I want to show you something with onion skinning for a minute. No. Yeah, it's not really helping me in this particular case. All right, take that back. Let me turn that off. The idea would be, can one imagine, like, let's focus on this near leg now. What would happen to this white leg here between this drawing and this drawing, right? So you can see it's way back, and here it's already in front. If you can imagine something in the middle, right, that would be the way the next set of poses work. So that leg's going to have to be somewhere between this position and this one. So, you know, the foot might be just barely off the ground. The knee would be a little bit forward from where it is, right? And then it arrives here. So you'd have something in between. The same thing goes for the next pose, right? Here, again, I'm talking about the near leg, that white leg. Let me get a little closer to it, right? So this leg here, it's in the passing position. You know, the next pose, it's going to make contact, right, with the front, this white leg right there, right? But that's a big leap, really, right? I mean, where would it go between here and here? You know, the knee would be further in front. The lower leg would be halfway swiveled. You know, it wouldn't be completely a straight leg yet, but it'd be on its way to being straight, right? It would have to look like between this position and this position. You know, you'd have to consider the joints mostly, the knee, and maybe the position of the foot too, because here the heel is on the ground. You know, here the toe is pointing at the ground. So next week I have a mannequin. I call it a mannequin, where you could really work with the parts easier. This guy's a little hard to work with because he doesn't really have two parts for the leg, you know. So next week I'm going to have something where the legs and the arms are actually broken into two parts. So the thing is, once the near leg's in front, we know it's all about that leg, the far leg there, right? The next position's passing. How does this dark leg now get from here? The knee's bent, right? A little bit, at least in this drawing. It isn't always, you know, like in the My Bridge, they're straighter, right? But it's going to get to here. So here the knee's way in front, here it's way behind. Wouldn't it have to be around here at some point, you know, further forward? You know, maybe it has to bend even more in the next position so that it could arrive at this very bent pose. So that's the way it would work. There'd be one additional drawing here, 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 and here. There'd be 4 more drawings. So the next system is called the 8 pose method. So I want to say something to everybody in here. You know, we're going to do this stuff together. I don't want to talk too much because we want to do more together. But I have 4 excellent videos, really excellent, in the homework box. This week's homework is just to watch the videos. So I think you're going to fall in love with some of these people. You might want to find their channels and see what else they do. Some of them are really fun, crazy guys who could draw and animate. Others are more sober. But some of them will show you 4 pose, and some of the videos show you 8. And I also have samples of my own to share with you. Okay. All right. So the people who've been waiting, right, because you don't have Animate with you, you're just about ready to join us, right? The people who have had Illustrator, you should be where I am right now. I want you to do something with me. I want you to just flat out close this document because I want to show you. See, here's the problem with this before you do it. Like, how am I going to really make this guy go anywhere? You know, really, it would be kind of exhausting. I want to show you guys something. He's all on one layer right now, right? And here's the first position, right? So this would have to move forward, wouldn't it? So, I mean, really, would I have to do that? Move him over, right? And then take this guy and move it even further over? So let's see if onion skinning is a little bit more useful to us today. I don't know why my onion skinning's being, I feel like I have to get busy with onion skinning options. It's a little hard to see what's going on here. I don't know what I'm missing. But here I've got him in the first position, and here he is. He's moved forward a little. There, he's moved forward a little, right? And this guy's left behind. I'd have to select him and move it even further. It's going to be a little exhausting, you know, getting that to behave. Turn off my onion skinning. Now he's going somewhere. So I want to point something out. Sometimes that is what you're going to have to do, you know, especially if he's just taken a couple steps. I may challenge you at some point to have someone walk and then sit down in a chair. You know, we'll see. how this goes. But if you make them a graphic symbol, there's a lot you can do. So this next exercise is we're going to make them into a graphic symbol. People who didn't have Illustrator in a few minutes are going to open the file where I've already made the graphic symbol for you. So if you didn't have Illustrator, watch just a little longer. I do apologize for that. I really, really do. All right, let's open a whole new document. Same size, 1280 wide, 720 tall, frame rate of 24 is really critical today. And click create. I'd like you to make sure you can see your stage. All right. Well, last week we took a little break from animated graphic symbols, right? Because I felt like the class was getting a little too intense and I did want to cover animated type with you, animated text, kinetic text. This week we're kind of returning a little bit to graphic symbols. The last time we did it, we made the bird flap. So in the library, we took the bird and we made it flap. Those of you who did the extra credit, you did the same thing with a car. In the library, you made the wheels turn. Right now, we're not going to put that pasted artwork directly on stage. We're going to make a graphic symbol from scratch. This is a slightly different method than we've ever used before. So join me. I'd like you to find your library. And I want you to notice something about the library. The very, very bottom, which is hard to see on my screen, right? I'm going to drag my library out so you can see it a little easier. So the bottom of your library has this plus sign, right? Now, we use a lot of convert to symbol, right? We did a drawing and then told it then to become a symbol. This time we're going to open a symbol that's empty and work in an empty symbol. So at the bottom of the library, could you click the plus sign? Now, this is going to be our walker, so let's call it walker. And I need for you to check the type. This is the first time where a small mistake here is going to blow it. You definitely do not want a movie clip. The movie clip can do it, but you'll only see the guy walk if you export, which is kind of weird, and I don't really want to talk about that now. The graphic symbol is what you want. So in the library, you click the plus sign at the very bottom left. Here's the window. You chose type graphic and you called it Walker. Let's click OK. Now I want to mention to you that right now you're in a void. I want to prove it to you. There's no walls in the graphic symbol, right? The little plus sign just to let you know where the middle is. Now, if you look in the top left, though, do you recognize this look in the top left? This is called symbol editing mode. It's telling you you're inside Walker. You're not in the movie anymore. All right, paste now. So the main difference is you're not pasting to what we call the root timeline, right? The main one where all your layers are going to live. You opened a graphic symbol from the library and you're going to paste there instead. All right, let's paste. Same options show up and you make the same choice. Do not check paste as bitmap. Leave the other three on. Let's click OK. So I'm very far away from this. It's vector art, so it doesn't really matter much. I'm just going to zoom in, Command plus. So we're seeing every pose, and that's the word we like to use, pose, the 4 poses, right? And they're clearly listed on the layers here, should help us stay organized, right? Now, what I want you to do is this. One more time, let's hide the lower 3. But could everybody wait for 1 second? Right? So those of you who succeeded at this because you had Illustrator open today, just wait. I want to talk to everybody who didn't. All right, folks, if you didn't have Illustrator, I need for you to talk to me now. I know it was no fault of your own, right? No judgment, right? And I saw this beforehand, so I have something for you, right? All right, if you didn't have Illustrator, you couldn't do the pasting, so please get to your assets. You'll see there's an FLA there, right? An animate file called 2D Class 10 Emergency Backup. The emergency being that the person couldn't get at Illustrator. Could you double click that one? This is just for the people who didn't get to the stage we're at. right? You opened, those people without Illustrator opened emergency backup. Then you want to go look at the library and you'll see I already made the symbol for you. I want you to double click it, right? So this is exactly where the rest of the class is. So emergency backup just already has the artwork imported as a graphic symbol. So please open emergency backup if you couldn't join me earlier for any reason. Or you didn't have Illustrator or you came late or whatever. You're opening emergency backup. All right, so you're going to work on that file. I'm going to go back to the one that I had. They're virtually identical. Folks, I'm just taking a breath because I realized it's a little weird to have two people, two groups sort of, but now we're on the same page, right? Does anybody need a hand at this stage? Please don't be shy. Don't be shy in front of the others here. Don't be shy in front of me. Zach, I just got your messages about the camera. I completely understand that. All right. Okay. What do we do now? Right? I was saying before that the layers were there just to help us organize the drawing, get to understand them, but we really want to move them into one layer. So again, here's far leg contact. I asked everybody to hide the three beneath, right? So in other words, it's going to look like this at first, right? You're in the graphic symbol. Again, if you just got here, you got to go to that library, double click it, right? And some of you are already in your symbol editing mode. So if this is, you can just look, here's the top one, right? That's contact. I'm going to hide it. Here's the next one, right? The nearer leg is trying to come in front. Here's the next one. It made it. The near leg's in front. And so the back leg is trying to get there. All right, let's show all those layers now. I want you to go by threes again. So the first keyframe's fine. I'm going to take this one, press it, and drag it. Skip one, skip two, and put it on the third. I'm going to go to the next position. I'm going to drag it up to that top layer. Skip one, skip two, go to the third. This is called going by threes. And get the last one, drag it up, skip one, skip two, and go into the third slot. I'm going to tell you, this is going to loop. So we really do have to give this 2 blank frames like the other poses have, right? So that it takes the same amount of time on stage. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of twitchy. So once you've got that last position here, I'd like you to F5, 2 slots over. You can see now that they all look the same. Keyframe, 2 blanks, keyframe, 2 blanks. It's just to get the timing right. If we didn't give it those blank spaces, this guy looks like he's had more coffee than me. Now, I want to say something. Technically, we could get this working right now. We really did the hard part. So I just want to say to you, I want to neaten it up and I want to make it a little smarter. I want to be very clear that these next steps are not critical, but you might agree with me that they're smart, right? So I'd like you to join me. Don't delete the empty layers just yet. I want to introduce something small that you could use if you like. There's a way to label frames. They literally have a word on them, right? To remind you what they are. It could be like explosion. This way, next time you're looking through your huge timeline, you want to work on your explosion, you could find it quickly. So you're actually going to put labels in the frames. It's not required, but it's cool, and I'd like to show you how to do it. So I'm going to use this feature down here to spread out my timeline. And I know that's a little confusing looking because the frames look so large, but we're going to need to see the labels we're about to give it. All right, this is what I'd like you to do. Could you click on the first keyframe? I debated whether to cover this today, so I hope this doesn't confuse anyone. But I want you to click on the first keyframe. I want you to go to the properties palette and notice it says label, label name, right? So I'd like you to write FL, that's just for far leg, contact. Click out and take a look at your layer. It says FL contact in it. hard to see on my screen, but there it is. I want you to go to the next keyframe and look at the properties palette. And here you're going to name it. Now, there are the layers there to remind you. That's the order you went in, right? This here, the near leg is passing, right? Its knees bent, it's front of its partner there, it's heading forward. This is near leg passing. Doesn't fit well, it's such a long name. I'm going to come, click the keyframe, and I'm going to write NL for near leg. You could write the whole near leg if you want. Might be hard to see. Dash passing. So that's the usual phrase, contact or passing, contact or passing. Click out and you'll see that. So you really don't have to do this, but you could put labels on any keyframe you want. And I'm going to finish it out since I started. I'm going to the next one. The near leg, the one closest to us. This guy's near leg is white, right? It's making contact in front. It's got its heel on the ground. So I'm going to click it and I'm going to label it that way. So I'm going to write NL near leg dash contact. And I'm going to keep repeating this till you hate me for it, right? Because it's going to help you be clearer. Now, I have one more to do, but I just want to repeat an idea. Once a leg's in front, right, the whole body shifts on it, right? That leg made contact, the other leg goes into passing, right? So this case is the near leg that's making contact. The far leg has got to pass it. And sure enough, that's what the next keyframe is. The far leg is passing. I'm going to click that keyframe and I'm going to write FL dash passing. And I'm going to click out. I just want to repeat a couple of ideas. I'm going to put my library back for a minute. That is not required. Also, it's hard to see if you're zoomed at the usual level, right? It's not going to help too much like that. So you might want to grab this little slider at the bottom, drag it over to the right so you could see what you just did. It's just going to help you stay organized. We could delete these 3 empty layers. I didn't want to do it before because it served as a nice reminder. Now we really don't need it. So I'm going to go to the empty layers and delete them with the little trash can. But don't delete the good one. So we should all be doing the exact same thing, right? Regardless of whether you came from Illustrator today or whether you had to open the emergency backup. This morning I woke up and I'm like, I keep kits for myself. I'm like, what's the emergency backup? What's that? I almost threw it out. And then I was like, oh yeah, whew. Right, just because of the Illustrator, the possibility since we're not at home anymore. I mean, since we're not at school. All right. We're going to take a break very, very soon, guys. I just want to make one small point. We're in symbol editing mode right now, right? So you'd see the animation here, but the reason we did it in symbol editing mode is so we can have a little bit more fun back on the main timeline. Could you save your file if it doesn't have a name yet because you're making your own? You could name it. So you may want to call it Walker 1. We're going to do others, or whatever name you want to give it. I recommend putting it in the folder with all the other parts so you can keep a little package about this subject together. So that's what I'm going to do. I put my assets on the desktop today, so I'm going to open it, and I'm going to put Walker 1 in there. Now, always when you're in symbol editing mode, you have to remember that you left the movie. Right? You have to get back to the movie. Let's get back to the movie. So I come into the top left. Here's that arrow that gets me back, right? I should say scene 1 when I get all the way back. So the scene's empty, right? Because we never did anything on the main stage, right? We did it all in the library. This is where it gets cool. I'd like you to drag it and drop it anywhere you like for right now. Now, I want to say something. In the library, that guy took 12 frames, right? We pointed out earlier, because Joseph pointed out, how many frames does each pose get? And in this demonstration, they each got 3, right? So contact 3, passing 3, the next leg makes contact, another 3, and then the other leg starts to pass. In total, that's 12. So to really get to see the whole thing on the root timeline, it's going to have to be at least 12 frames long. right? Let's see what happens if you made it, you know, 36 frames. Let's go all the way out to 36. There's a lot of play here, really. You don't have to be exact. Just spread it out. We always use F5, don't we? To determine how long the layer is going to be. All right, I'm recommending 36. And you could rewind and play it. That's with no tweening at all. Right, there he is. He's just walking. That wouldn't have happened if you didn't add frames, though. You had to add at least a few because he really takes 12 frames to complete one cycle. You know, just to keep it neat, I went in 12s. I said 36. So really, basically, he's taken 6 steps. Remember, each cycle is 2 steps, right? 2 whole strides. So he's really taken 6 steps right now. Can you save again? I would get a look at it in Flash Player so I can make a bigger point. That guy's just going to keep walking. he's just going to keep on walking, you know, and this is one of the reasons why I'm so into these nested symbols. By the way, since we're doing this today, you're going to like some of these short videos that I gave you the links for in the homework box, because one of the guys actually talks very clearly about the difference between doing it all on stage, which is sometimes superior, to doing it as a nested symbol, like we just did, an animated symbol. He doesn't come out saying this is better than that. He just says why one is better sometimes and why the other is better sometimes. Anybody have any questions so far? Is it, you know, sometimes I think, and the reason people aren't asking questions is because they're just not formed, which I can understand. You know, which thing is it that I'm not clear about isn't always obvious.
Because I think most people get questions is when they start getting like creative in the process and stuff like that.
Right, right. And it's a good point because how can you resist it? You know, really, I realize, you know, teachers are sometimes like want you to stay really close to the demo, and I'll admit I often feel that way, but that's no fun. And as a student, I didn't do it. I was jamming all the time while the teacher was giving me information, make it my own. But sometimes you get lost, right? You know, maybe someone's just like, oh, I want to make his arms move while I was talking. And what did he say? Thank God for YouTube, right? We started this whole demo at 10 to 10, 50 minutes in. So anyone who goes to YouTube could skip the lecture if you like and just go right to the demo. So look, if anyone doesn't have any questions right at the moment, right, we're going to take a break. So please save what you do because it'd be a rough ride to redo all that, right? And I got more for you after the break. It's 10:35. I want to come back at 11. So I'm giving a fairly long break, 25-minute break. Save, go have your break. Don't come back late, please, right? Really, I'm not going to keep repeating myself because we're all here now, right? So be sure you're back at 11. Folks, have some coffee. Whatever it takes. If you sneak a peek at the news, just take a deep breath first, right? And I'll see you back at 11, right? I'll see you at 11. All right. Hello. So let's see. I wonder how many of the class went looking at the news. I think a bunch of people are probably, I think some people are probably boycotting the news. You know, who could blame you? It's so exhausting. Oh my God. If anybody's curious, here's a quick news update. I'll be an anchor for a minute without any opinion invested. At the moment, Biden is ahead in 4 states. Yes, 4 out of the 5 states. Not by a lot, but he moved ahead in Pennsylvania, and which he hadn't been for days. And if he wins that, he becomes president by itself. He's ahead in Arizona and Nevada still. If he gets those 2, he becomes president. Of course, if he wins all three, he becomes president by a lot, and maybe smoother. Um, though Trump can still win. So if you're, keep a level head. Whoever you're into right now, it's all in play. But that's where we're at. Definitely, Biden has moved substantially forward. The last 24 hours has just been steadily like that. So people are holding their breath. All right, so it goes. Let's get back to where we were. Okay, guys. You're all hearing me fine. You're seeing my screen, are you still? Just double checking. All right, great. I want to just come back to where we were, move that a little forward before I debate, whether we should redo any of it. So when we left off, we'd already dragged our graphic symbol out of the library and dropped it on the stage. And since the graphic symbol, I'm going to go inside it for a minute just to make my point, is 12 frames long, right? To actually see it play out on the main stage, I needed at least 12 frames. I went up to 36, notably 3 times 12, but really any length you would have seen him walking for sure, as long as he had enough room to take a few steps. So I gave him a bunch of frames, but he's not going anywhere, right? He's walking in place. Okay, I want to talk about the next concept then. Should we make him move or should we make the landscape move? Now, if that sounds odd, just think this through for a minute. When you're watching a movie of an actor walking, sometimes the camera follows the actor, right? And if the camera follows the actor, say they're on a track, right, follows the actor stays in the same place in the frame. Even though they're walking, if the camera's there, they seem like they're still. They're not because the landscape seems to pass behind them. So that's one method. If the camera follows the actor, that actor's going to stay in the frame in the same spot. The opposite side, though, if the camera's still and the actor's walking, you might see this, or in our case, this. Let's try that first. It's a little more obvious, right? So let's give it a shot. All right. So I have a kind of, I have this 36 frame layer, right? And I want you to make sure you're in scene 1, right? The main movie. You could always look in the top left. Make sure that you've got frames after that graphic symbol in frame 1. So, and if you don't, remember, we just clicked F5 out here. If you'd like to match me, find frame 36, unless yours isn't matched yet, and F5 there. We don't have to be exactly the same. All right, we're going to do some tweening, right? So I'd like you to bring your playhead back to frame 1. You're on the main timeline and you're going back to frame 1, right? And we're going to click on that keyframe. And I want to be very frank. It doesn't matter a hell of a lot right now whether you use classic tweening or motion tweening. Really, I'm going to go with classic tweening just because we focused on it more on the class. I know a lot of you might like motion tweening quite a bit after last week. So if you want to improvise a little, I'm okay with that. It should be one of those two, though. Obviously not shape tweening. I'm going to use classic. All right. So I'm going to frame 1, and I'm control clicking on it. And I'm going to set it up as a classic tween. Yeah, this would work. Oh, yeah, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. Let's set up a classic tween. Now I'm on frame 1, and my real goal was to have him walk across the stage. So even though I turned the tweening on, I could make sure I'm over frame 1 and then move him. So I'm going to put him over here. I'm going to have him, let's have him tucked right in like that. So again, you wouldn't want to be out here and do that because you'll be moving the wrong moment. So again, if you want him to start elsewhere, right, and you had him in the middle, right, make sure your playhead is in frame 1. Grab him and move him over. If you want him to take the whole 36 frames to get to the other wall, then drag your playhead all the way to the end. Right? Remember how both forms of tweening let you do this. You just drag the playhead, then get the artwork and move it. So essentially, I went to frame 1, dragged the guy to the left. I went to the last frame and dragged him to the right. Now I can play it. And, the speed feels wrong. He feels too fast and a little bit like he's sort of skating. And I'd like to see what we could do to deal with that. Well, in general, when you want something to be slower, you give it more frames. You want it to be faster, you give it less frames. So if that felt long, we're going to go much further out. I'd like to go all the way to frame 60. We're almost going to nearly double this. So I'm going to go out to frame 60. And what I think I want to do? Let's just drag this keyframe over to 60. And that's an easy way to do it. There's other ways. So, you might have to use this little scroll bar, to get out here toward the end. My goal is to move this keyframe all the way over to 60. So I'm going to click on the keyframe now, just to select it, then press and drag over to 60. So I gave him more time. I'm going to go back and play it. That feels quite a bit better. How's it going? Did it still work? Did it work, guys? Okay.
Yeah, then.
All right. I want to mention, you could play with that length of time and just use that sense of feel to get it to feel right. But I do just want to mention just a theoretical way to look at it. And I want to show you what I mean. Here is frame 1, right? He's taking that first step. He's one step in. Now, what that means is one step is about that big. I want to show you something. Now, I'm going to break it if I do this on this layer. So let me take that off. I'm going to do it another layer. You don't have to do this. I just want to show you something. Theoretically, then, this would be another step for the other leg. I'm just option dragging to make a point. 3, 4 steps, 5 steps, 6 steps, 7, 8, yeah, maybe 8.5, 8 3/4. So what does that even mean? Remember the graphic symbol was 12 frames, right? But really, it was only 6 frames for him to take one step. One step worth was 6 frames. So I'm going to go back here, and what that would mean, if I'm right, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's just say 9, right? And if it literally takes 6 frames per step, that would be 54 frames in total. I don't really do this. I just want to make an argument that there is some logic to it. If that's true, we'd see the next leg and forward each time I get to the end of one of these boxes. Let's see if that works out. I'm going to change this so that it's back on 54. And dragging isn't going to be quite as easy as it was. So I'm going to actually just click up here, somewhere before 54. I'm not going to click in here or here. I'm going to change both my layers. You could click right here. I'm going to use the old Shift F5 trick. Remember, it's the opposite of F5. It takes out frames. My computer, I have to hold down FN. You might have to do the same. So I'm holding down my FN key because I have to. Shift, and I'm going to tap F5 till I bring this back to 54. And it's a small difference. So I'm not sure we'll perceive it. And that does feel good, though. Now, that's theoretical. Don't get lost in that. I'm going to take it out, though, and I'm going to do that just one more time to make the point. So my argument was this. I could see how wide one step takes, right? A human being then takes the next step. It's usually the same distance, unless he's speeding up or slowing down, right? So really what I did just to make my point was I grabbed the rectangle tool and I made a layer for it. And I'm trying to line myself up here. So I know that's one step, it's distance. So I can figure out how many steps it takes to get across this field, across this stage. That would be another step, and I just kept doing that just so that I could do a little bit of math, really. On the one hand, I'll know how many steps he's going to take. That might help with the timing. You could tell my boxes are not exact. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So maybe I didn't line it up as well. I don't know, but let's say 8. You know, I can go into the movie clip and see how many frames, right? How much time one step takes. But we already did that. And it wound up in ours, it took 6 frames to take a single step, you know, with one leg. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 times 6 is 48. So by that math, you know, it's a little different because this is an inexact science, but you could tell I'm within 10 frames. You know, that's how I figured that out. Here goes the next legs now here, you know, and if my box was accurate, each time the following leg's going to match up with the edge of one of these boxes. You could tell I'm a little off, right? Because this is a little indistinct. I'd have to really measure it a little more carefully. Any questions yet? I want to do some other things, but I just want to mention, and I'm not sure the walker is really great for it, but you could use tint and alpha and scale. Rotation would be really weird. You know, have a guy just sort of rotate in the middle of his walk. But, you know, we could do any number of things. You know, so for example, why don't you give yours a background color? Could you just click on the stage, go to the properties palette, pick yourself a background, you know, just click anywhere on the background, go to your properties palette, and here it is. So let's say I tinted one or the other. You know, I can do it on either keyframe. So if I go to the first keyframe, click the guy, I'll see on the properties palette color effects. Well, I'm not saying it's a great idea. It's just interesting. You know, you can go to either keyframe to do this, but you would have to click the artwork either way. I'm going to do it at the beginning. Go to the keyframe, click the artwork. We did tint a bunch in the past. Here's tint. And I can pick any color I want to tint to and how much of that color. So let's see what this guy would look like. I'm trying to submerge him in that orange atmosphere. He's coming out of it. You know, maybe there's a lamp on this side, none over here. So this is interesting. I could scale it, which might imply a certain amount of distance being traveled. You know, he is a side view, so it could be a little awkward. Also might change my sense of timing. Does feel quite a bit like he's coming from the distance, though. I think if I was going to do that, you know, shrink down this first instance, maybe I'd bring him up a little bit. He feels a bit like he's coming toward us. You see this in animation all the time. You would think I'd need a slightly different angle, but the eye accepts it. All right, I know people are getting tired. I do want to just show you something for argument's sake. If you needed a crowd walking, right, you'd probably not want them to be identical. You know, it's not a crowd of clones, right? So I would bring one of these instances out onto its own layer and then open another layer and bring one out and another one and bring it out, and another one and bring it out. This way they could each be animated their own way, but I don't have to redraw it. And it would look something like this. Let me go back to frame 1. If I made another layer, went to my library, I could just drag him out. You know, and you know, I just better name these so I don't get lost because it's going to get confusing. But I could put him anywhere I want. I could turn on tweening, any kind of tweening that I want. I'm going to stick with this so I don't get confusing. Right? I can go anywhere on the timeline and make him, you know, move. Just don't lose track of which one it is. And now he's going to look really weird because he's so tiny. So that's a little odd, right? Maybe I'll do it more like this. I, you know, really would have to, you know, plan out what my goal is if I was going to work with a lot of these. My main argument, though, is that, you know, I can have independent layers. I'm going to throw that layer out in a minute because I don't mean to confuse anybody. But it's because they're on independent layers that I could change, how they relate to each other. They're really believable. And if I change colors and other things, I may be able to get away with this without it being, too repetitive or too obvious. Any questions so far? So you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to use that hard-won graphic symbol for that different method. And this is the method that I was comparing to a cameraman walking evenly with the actor. So in the box, the actor's always in the middle. But if he's really walking, if they're both walking, the camera person and the actor, right? You're going to see the landscape changing. So let's try that out. Okay, I'd like you to open a new document. Don't worry, we're not going to have to do everything from scratch. Right? I got a trick I'd like to share with you. Right? Could everyone do File menu? Well, first off, notice the name of your library. So if you go to the library, mine's called walker1.fla because that's what I saved it as. And if you want to save what you've done so far up to this point, save again. But the library is named after the document, walker1.fla. Let's open a new document, and I want to show you something cool. File menu, new. You're going to want to join me on this, right? So if you are on some deep improvisation right now, you might want to, back off and join me instead. File menu, new. Same sizes, 1280, 720, frame rate of 24. And I'm going to back away so I can see the stage. I want to mention, how would you borrow something from a different library? Right? So all you do is open up your new document and the old, right? So if you have the old document open and the new document, look what you can do. The top of your library lets you borrow from any of the libraries that are out. I have 4 documents out, so all the libraries are available. So if I go and borrow from another library, like Walker One, as soon as I use it, this element's going to be part of the new document library. So let me repeat that. You open up a new blank document and you're leaving the old one out nearby. So the new one could access any open library from here. So I'm going to ask you to go to Walker One and drag it out. I'm going to compare that for a minute. Couldn't I just, sorry, this is not the one I'm using. Hang on a minute there. Couldn't I just go to a keyframe, and copy the artwork? Command C, go to the new document and just paste it there? Yeah, that's the other good way. And it shows up in the library. Did everyone manage to get that symbol into the new document? All right, I want to prove something to you, right? How much this guy's going to feel like he's going somewhere, even without going somewhere. So this is what I'd like you to do. You're the cameraman, so I want you to put him in the frame where you want him. Do you want him in the middle? Do you want him on the left? You probably wouldn't want him way on the right. That would just feel weird. So I'm going to go a little bit left of the middle. I'm going to leave him right like that. And I'm also making him large. Remember, this is vector art, both programs, Illustrator and Flash. So you can change the size as often as you want. Illustrator and Animate, I should say. All right, let's give him 60 frames. That looked pretty good, right? So let's just go out to frame 60. You may have to change that later. And F5 it to give it some time. All right, so he's just walking in place. So to make him feel like he's going somewhere without actually doing any tweening on the body, on the actor, we have to work with a landscape. So this is different. We haven't done anything like this together before, so I would like you to join me on these next steps, right? All right, make a new layer, please. Drag it to the bottom. And I want you to rename them both. I'd like you to call this layer buildings. And I'd like you to call the layer with your walker on it, walker. We're about to draw a special kind of landscape, right? And to probably make it easier, I'd like to lock the walker layer, right? That walker layer is done. I can unlock it any time to get busy, but for the moment, it's done. So I want to lock it. So there's the little lock icon. Make sure not to lock them both. Just lock the one with the walker. So this is what you want. The walker on top, locked with about 60 frames. The buildings on bottom, there's nothing there yet, but we call it buildings, and it's not locked. Okay, I want to show you something and explain something. I'm going to make a big landscape, and it's going to tween. I'm literally going to move the entire landscape of buildings toward the walker. Now he's behind the walker, so he's going to come toward him, even though he's behind, and it's going to continue passing that way. It's like, whoosh, and it's going to make it feel like he's heading to the right. Right? That's the idea. The question is, how big does the landscape need to be for me to pull that off? So lately, I've been working with it roughly twice the size of the stage, right? So I want to show you what I mean by that, right? And let's start here, right? Can you guys watch? I'm going to the keyframe for the buildings layer, the one on the bottom. Make sure I don't draw it on the wrong layer. And I'm getting the rectangle tool. I'd like to use merge mode right now, right? And I know a lot of you are working on animate between, classes. So I don't really know what mode you're in, right? So I'm going to make buildings by merging rectangles and other shapes. So I got my rectangle tool, right? And I'm coming way to the bottom, right? And if I press on it and it's a little darker, right? You know you're in object mode. When it's released, right? Little tiny bit lighter, you're in merge mode, right? Okay, I'm in merge mode. I'd like you to first choose a color for your background. So let's go back to the black arrow, click on the stage, choose some kind of color for the background. Sorry about that. That'll help make some color decisions. Then go back to the keyframe you want to draw in. Just to be sure, you might have a lot of layers, So you gave it a background, you go into the keyframe you have available on the new layer and get the rectangle tool. Again, you're checking you're in merge mode. It's not slightly darker, it's lighter. I'd like you to pick a color for your buildings. You could change it later. And I'd like you to just watch this. This will probably work best with no stroke. Well, definitely will work best with no stroke. So if necessary, bring the stroke box to the front and click color of none. Right, bring it to the front, or you could do it from here. Make sure you don't have a color of none. All right, watch me first. The buildings are behind the guy, right? So they're gonna look kind of small, and it depends how far away they are, right? So right now I'm gonna start something like that and see how it goes. That could be a building, but I'm gonna make a more interesting one by adding a rectangle in merge mode. Right? And right now I'm just kind of trying to match the bottom. I have a way to clean that up after, right? I'm going to go nearby and make a different kind of building here. I'm going to elaborate on these soon, right? I'm going to put, medium-sized building here. And this one, I'm going to give it some smokestacks. Merge mode, so a silhouette of a city in the background, right? Maybe a little addition. One more. Complex building. And I'm going to put something here too. I'm not done, but I would like to make some changes, so I'm going to switch to the black arrow. I'm in merge mode, so I've got this luxury now. These are each unified shapes, so I could even change their color. But right now I'm more interested in changing their shape. So don't select them, click off if that happens, and decide what you might want to do with any of them. Do you want more elaborate looking shapes in your buildings? Keep it interesting. You want to add more. All right, so right now I'm not going to get too busy with drawing, right? I'm just going to work with what I got. I don't know. I'm feeling greedy. I'm going to put another one here, a little smokestacky kind of thing. Okay. Thing is, though, I'm going to need this to be twice as big. So I think what I'm going to do to speed it up is do some copying of those buildings back there. I'm going to zoom very far back now because I'm going to need to work out here. And what I'm going to do is get the black arrow. I lock the walker's layer. The background color doesn't even have a layer, so it's very easy for me to select. I'm going to press and drag right over this whole thing. Then hold down Option on my Mac or Alt on Windows. I'm going to keep those keys down, Option or Alt, and I'm going to drag a copy of all those buildings here. Now, I know they're identical buildings, and if you don't like that, you could click off and make changes if you want. That's acceptable. You could always click on one, so you could zoom in with Command plus if you want. Now, I don't really feel like it matters too much whether they're precisely the same, or not. But it's too much fun to draw, so I'm going to add some stuff. Okay. So here's the argument, right? We drew some buildings with merge mode because it makes a nice silhouette, right? We copied all of those by option dragging them, and it's roughly twice the size of the stage. If you feel like you don't have enough, just click any building and option drag a copy of it. The duplicating I did was just to speed it up, really. So like right now, it won't help a lot, right? It looks like he's got some context, but that's not really what I want. We're going to take the entire city and make it into one symbol. The reason being, it's just going to move as a unit. It's going to feel like it's being panned, looked across, right? So we need to select all those buildings. A quick way would be to click the keyframe. They're all in one keyframe, and you see they all select. Another way, since your other layer is locked, is press and drag over all of them if you could see them. But make sure you get it all. You don't want to miss even a little part. Once you've selected those buildings, you want to convert to symbol. We've not really dealt with movie clips much, but I do want to say a quick word about it. Graphic symbols are fine. They really are. I think a lot of animators would reach right for it. The only thing is if I do make it a movie clip, then I get blending modes. We did some of that last week, didn't I? No? But we get drop shadows and blur and all kinds of things. So I think right now I'm going to make it a graphic symbol. Maybe I'll change it later so I could show you what I'm talking about. Well, right now, if they're selected, make a symbol, convert to symbol. It can be graphic in this case or a movie clip. It has no internal animation. The walker had internal animation, the walk. So it had to be a graphic symbol. But if something's not going to have anything built inside of it, motion inside the inside symbol editing mode, you could use either graphic. Let's stick with graphic. I'm going to call it buildings. All right, I'm talking too much. So all I want you to do is select all those buildings and make a symbol out of it. All right. Now, we're going to tween this, right? The question that I have, and I don't really have an easy answer, is where should it be in frame one? Should it be here? Should it already be a little past him? We could change that later, so it's not really critical. I think for right now, I'm going to just move it a little bit in front of him. I'm on the buildings layer. I went to frame one, and I moved the buildings into this position. Okay, I want you to turn on tweening on the buildings layer. I don't want to mix too many things, so I'm sticking with classic tweening. But I might actually use this. They each have their advantages, but we did more classic tweening, so I'm going to go to that. Remember, regardless of which of those two flavors, classic or motion, setting the next keyframe is similar. I want you to go to the end of the timeline. Then click on that symbol back there and drag it way over here. So at the end of the timeline, you pulled the buildings toward him, and any distance toward him would be effective. I just chose to go past him completely. So in frame 1, the buildings were on our right, but at the end, they're on the left. So this is what that looks like. And it's very convincing, but too fast. So let's, stare that down and think it through for a bit. If you like what you have, save it. This is a whole new document. So I could call this Walker with Buildings, perhaps. I'm saving it to the same folder. And I click Save. If you want to see it as a SWF, open a SWF. You should know by now how to do that, right? Command Return on a Mac, Control Enter on Windows. And you could see it. So I want to say a few things about it. I really got to slow the buildings down because he's more like a car, judging by the speed of the buildings, right? So I don't really like that. I like the overall feel though quite a bit. The other thing I want to mention, mine is looping rather nicely. I'm not sure you care though. Most of you guys are going to be working, on a TV show or something. And, when you ever see something like this loop, right? On the web it might. And I'm a little surprised that it's looping that well. I want to tell you part of the secret though. One reason mine's looping is because I got a big gap. So by the time this thing goes off stage, right, I see the gap again. So when it goes back to frame 1, I'm not looking at a half a building. I'm looking at the space. So somehow it winds up being very believable. I didn't expect that. Now that I've pointed out the trick, you could probably see the flaws in it. Did the building thing work for you? That's Wyming's response. Fascinating. Anyway, about the speed of the buildings, right? There's a couple things I want to point out. Remember, more frames means slower. Less frames means faster. Well, let's see if we could use that. I'm going to use this little feature here on my timeline so I can see them both. The Walker's got 60 frames, and now he really doesn't matter how many frames he has because he's in one place. He's just standing there. So that could be any length. If I want the buildings to take longer, I could click the keyframe and drag it to the right. I could click before it and use F5 to add frames in the tween. I'm clicking in here, I'm using F5 to move it over, or I could press and just drag it. They're both just as good. I'm just taking a guess. I just added 50 frames. The buildings are going to disappear though. So if, the Walker in this case, uh-oh, so I better spread him out also. There's no keyframe to drag, so I'm going to have to use F5 for this guy. So if you drag your keyframe to the right and anyway get that keyframe to the right, your buildings now take longer. Go to the Walker layer and extend it with F5. We do that a lot. I'm going to play it in Flash Player. That was a good guess. I'm buying it. Any satisfaction? Those of you who are exhausted, I've tried to wake one of you up because you were in a dead sleep. But the rest of you who managed to stay awake, it's week 10. How tiring is this? You don't even know who your president is. How tiring is that? COVID, COVID, COVID. I didn't mean to sound like a famous quote there, but it is exhausting. So I'm not blaming you, right? I hope somehow, though, that this is getting some kind of joy out of you because I don't know. Tiffany, you think they like this? You seem to get a better read. Yeah? Okay, good. She talks to me after class and encourages me sometimes. I can't tell if they like this at all, but she encourages me. So, does anybody have any questions or special requests?
I think I remember doing something similar like this at the beginning of the class, but now with this it's just like, oh, it's just that simple.
Really, and I have to say, it's more common to do it this way amongst animators when you can get away with it, because it is a lot less work than figuring out exactly how the guy's going to walk. But you know, if you were talking to a director of your favorite TV show, forget animation for a minute, they're making decisions with the camera people in advance to get this kind of shot like we got. If you had an actor there, you'd need a camera on a dolly so the camera could actually stay right next to the actor while he's walking, or you'd need a steady cam. You might have seen guys hold that. It's like they could walk with the actor and it keeps the camera steady, but the camera would have to move for this shot. So, you know, a live action director would really decide all this in advance, you know, which kind of shot they're going to get. You could use your graphic symbol either way. I want to show you a quick trick though about the background. It's a slightly different subject. This is a little bit related to the subject of parallax. And, you know, I'm not an expert on parallax, but I do dabble with it. And it's one way to create space, you know, layers of space that relate to movement. And here's what I'd like you to imagine. Imagine you're on a highway in a car and you're passing a mountain range. So, you know, you're driving along, maybe in Pennsylvania or something, and the mountains closest to your car, right, seem to be dashing by. You know, it's like when you look out a car window and look at the yellow lines on the road, they're like zoom, 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 zoom. Because to you, you're still, you know, you're in the car. So everything's moving really fast next to you. But the next layer of mountains, further in the distance, seem to be moving slower. And if you could see mountains in the far distance, they're barely moving. And it's something to do with the angle that you see on as you're moving. But I just want to prove a little of it to you. I want to make another layer of buildings back there to create even more space. And I don't have to draw them because I have some in the library. If you'd like to join me on this exercise to add another layer of more distant buildings, make a layer now. Call it BG or background, because this is going to go way back there. I'm going to call mine BG buildings, I think. And please drag it to the very, very bottom. For simplicity's sake, can you lock the other two layers? We'll avoid trouble. So you made a layer, called it something that makes sense, like background buildings. You dragged it to the bottom, so it's behind everybody. Let's get the playhead back to frame 1. Okay, this is going to be very easy, by the way. Right? You just set up the layers right and you're okay. Go to your library, and you should see the buildings in there. I want you to drag them out. Get the transform tool. I want to make it smaller, so I have to back away to even see it. Now it's confusing. I'm going to make it smaller because they're going to be way back there. So you drag them out, you zoomed away, so you can grab your transform tool, make them smaller. We do have to change their color, right? So that's going to be in color effects. You could use alpha, you could use brightness, or you could use tint. I'm going to try out brightness because I feel like I've neglected it. It's already a graphic symbol. We don't have to worry about that. Just make sure it's selected and go to the properties palette. I think alpha would look good, right? Again, that would look something like that, very far away. Let me bring this closer. Right there, there. Oh, that looks great. That's with alpha. Here's what I could do with brightness. I can make it lighter to stand out, or I can make it darker, right? It might depend on the part of day. That also looks good, right? It's very different kind of logic. Or I could use tint, right? And just pick a different color. You know, I'd have to make sure that it achieves my goal. You know, what would feel distant? I don't know, right? So I chose a color, and I could choose how much of that color too. Those are all good options. Brightness, tint, or alpha to create that space. I'm going to leave mine now because I'm pretty happy with it. And you could reposition those buildings if you want, because we're not going to tween them. I want to show you what I mean. You know, mine almost works. I just feel like they're a little too big for me to believe that they're not moving at all. You know, they would be moving a little, and that's harder to deal with. All I'm going to do is I'm going to make them really, really small. They're really far away, right? Maybe lift them up even. I could copy them if I think that would look better. I just option drag, by the way. Let's see if that worked. That I kind of buy. You know, the further away, the slower they would be. So far, you might not even notice. And that's why I'm doing it like this. Anyone who's brave, who feels the need, could figure out how to tween that layer back there, right? The idea is it would have to be slower than the buildings, the closer buildings. I'm going to come back and I'm going to save. Look, if there's no questions on this particular subject, I just want to spend a little, I'm going to let you guys out early today for a change, you know. Calista, I know you're into it. It's just the timing was funny. You know, your thumb went up the second I said I'm gonna let you out early. I want to do a couple quick things though. They won't take very long. I'll try to keep it short. I want to show you some stuff, some of your stuff, but I also want to show you just a little bit to provoke people in a good way to watch these tutorials by other teachers. So give me a second. I'm getting back to the handout for a moment. So these tutorials here, right? Some of them are just about the thinking of what they're all about walk cycles, right? Just walk cycles, right? And some of them are very just theoretical, so you can understand the concepts, help you make your own technical decisions in an informed way. Some are more detailed. We're not going to watch them all, right? I just want to show you a little bit.
Cancer care can't wait.
If you or someone you know
Give me a
has
second
symptoms or
there.
has been diagnosed with cancer. So let's talk about walk cycles. A walk cycle
This
is
guy
a looping
influenced
animation
me
of a walking character,
quite
which
a
starts
bit.
with the first foot, goes to the
Alan
second
back
foot,
there.
and ends back on the first foot. We're going to cover run cycles in the next video since there is just so much to cover with just walk cycles. So walk cycles can be scary for beginning animators because it seems
Right,
like
I
there are so
borrowed,
many poses to memorize.
kind
But
of
if you break
a
it
little
down
bit.
into simpler components, it becomes much easier
Look at
to
this.
wrap
We
your
didn't
head
do this
around.
position.
So instead of thinking of a walk cycle as 12 different poses to memorize, think of it as 2 poses. The first pose is called the contact pose because it is where the foot contacts the ground. The second pose is called the
Right. Look, I already said all that, so it's not like I want to watch them with you. I want you to see a little bit of what these choices are. You know, obviously, I'd love it if you watch them all. These guys are great. I love these guys. BAM Animation is a channel you could follow. They're nuts, but they're so good. Kind of showy.
Today on BAM, we're going to jump into some animation and show you how we made this walk cycle.
This is going to be a great video if you want to learn how animation works, or if you want to start learning how to animate.
You'll need a tablet, and we recommend Adobe's new rebranded animation software, Adobe Animate.
He's 2 years old.
Today,
I'm just going to skip forward for a little bit. So this is fast, right? It's not really designed for you to go step by step, but it's fun to see someone else's method. I really like these guys. I think you might be interested in many of their videos. I'm hoping this is going to get more people to look. Different methods, different styles. This guy broke down each limb into separate parts so you can move them independently. Something we're going to do next week. He also took his artwork from outside. Looks like Adobe Illustrator to me. And he doesn't narrate at all, you know, so I think you guys kind of know enough to get the basic idea of what he's doing. It's interesting right now, he's just copying the same position for all these layers, and these layers represent like the head, you know, the foreleg, different parts. And then he's going to go to separate sets and move the limbs for the poses we were talking about. So that looks like contact there, so he's probably going to do passing right now. So he moved the forward leg a little back. It makes it easier for him to get the close leg, the near leg. His near leg's made of 3 parts, so he's doing lots of maneuvers to move it. He's setting it up to pass. Now he's moving the lower leg with the transform tool, and he's got passing. He's being picky about it. Notice how the shapes overlap. So this would be object mode in Adobe Animate, or the default mode in Illustrator. So each of these columns up here is the next pose. So he's doing 4 poses here. So contact passing. This is going to have to be contact again when he gets to it. And then the last passing. And they're rather far apart on his. They're like 10 frames apart. You know, I got to say, with the method he's using, he could probably tween in between these. So he's not doing the frame by frame approach. He's starting that way, but he's probably going to turn on tweening in here. And let's just see if we can get a peek at that. Sure enough, she actually tweened them. I want to stop for a minute. The last video is by the Alan Becker again, the same as the first one. But I want to take a quick peek at something. I just want to see if I could see. This wouldn't work that way because these are not separate parts, the lower leg and the upper leg. I can't really tween them. Next week we're going to work that way. Guys, everybody looks tired. I really did want to show you some of your work. I didn't really pick anything. Would you guys like to see a little bit of each other's work? Anyone? Got 1 vote? No. I hear you, Wyming. He doesn't want me to show his work, I think. Callista does. Tiffany does.
It's no problem.
But we'll look at a little, right? Since people are not overly excited. Some don't mind. So yeah, I'm of the opinion that that's the biggest missing link in my class. It's not showing you what each other's doing. But all right, we'll take a little peek, and I'll keep it limited. Okay, got another vote. Another vote, yes. All right, let's take a quick look. I have them ready over here. I think I'm going to work backwards. I want to give you a quick peek at the 4 people who did extra credit already. You know, it's simple, but it's very bold. You know, he's got a kind of fun, playful style, but those cars are moving. And he went that extra mile of having them moving in different directions. You know, go Nassim. I want to see, Nassim, are you here? He was here. I think he took off. I was kind of curious whether it's the same symbol. He might have just taken the free transform tool and flipped it. So he was able to use it going in a different direction, which is really kind of cool. I like the bold colors. This is Ming Lang's, right? And he did the landscape trick because I did go over that in the extra credit, in the video I made for extra credit. So he's doing both though. The car itself is tweening from right to left. And the building, the mountains are coming from left to right. So it's also very convincing look. They can both move. Really like that he got the stripes on the road to move. You know, Ming Lang, where are you? Is he, I saw him. There he is. His box anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Well done, man. Good work. All right.
Thank you.
You know, again, like, okay, so the drawing's simple, but, you know, this took a lot of time. You know, as a professional, you could take a lot of time for those drawings to get made. You know, so these people are mostly, you know, focusing on the animation. This is a much sportier car going on. He's also tweened the lines on the road, which are very large, right? So it would probably help a lot if they had the right proportion to the car, but I like it. You know, and he's got all kinds of stuff going on. The clouds moving. You know, I got to say, you know, one thing that we could all know is if you had a week to prepare the drawings and another week to do the animation, you know, they might look better. Or if you all had drawing tablets. I do want to spend more time with more tricks that don't need drawing tablets. No. And again, anyone interested in that should probably watch that extra credit video, which was listed on last week's handout. Because I do talk a little bit about that there. All right, anyway. You know, really involved a lot of understanding. This one's got some nice drawing. I just love the mountainscape. Just looks really nice. You know, Callista, you know, and you know, really, I could tell you love this stuff. I think it shows in her work. Go Callista. Really, really nice. I hope inspires people. I love her colors. It's just bold. It's not about complexity. It's about sensitivity and boldness at the same time. All right. I want to give you a peek at some other stuff. I'm going backwards because I realize, people are low in energy. So I want to go recently. This is the Kinetic Type project. I just love this drawing, and I'm pretty sure Nassim is not in the room now. We could have asked him how he did the drawing, or if it was a borrowed drawing, which is acceptable for this kind of project. Couldn't sell it. I'd be slow to publish it. It is an animation class, not a drawing class. But I have the feeling he drew it himself. It's beautiful. If he did it right in Animate, I'd love to know whether he's using Illustrator. Let's give this a moment. It might be a larger file. My fan just went on my computer, which means it needs some attention. Beautiful landscape. The bird is doing this very delicate movement of the wings, which I quite like. It lands on the word peace. She really took this far. I love that leaf flying in the air. The fish might need a little bit more work. It gets a lot of attention. But I like the typography. I love the mix of Kinetic Type and other animation. Again, Callista, really like it. Again, look at this atmospheric landscape. I want to ask you a question, if you don't mind. Callista, is she still here? People took off. What's going on here? People don't want to look at each other's work. I want to say something really quickly. In art schools, you spend half your time looking at each other's work. In full-time art schools, and that is how you learn. There are 25 people, and every couple of weeks you're going to do a critique of all 25, and you can see what your peers are doing, how good they are, or directions that might be fascinating. And it's not about copying each other in any way. It's about inspiring each other. We'll look at just a couple more. Interesting use of the background. Looks like there may be some blending modes there. I'm not quite sure what that is. It looks a little like a spider to me, not too peaceful. But I really do like the kind of motion going on. Wei Ming, nice. Nice, nice. Fresh. Really what I'm looking for in this work is competence and personality. Yeah, competence is nice. But also personality. And each of these people brought something unexpected. This spinning star, different kinds of backgrounds. And Marilia, this is my favorite work of yours. I love the kind of really kind of loose, almost childlike heart with this, fancy, rather beautiful font, especially on the word beautiful.
Thank you.
Well done. This one's brave. Look at this. Really, really, I love the twirling background and the drawing of the present, The only thing I want to say, I want to make sure if Jacob's here. Jacob, are you here? What's going on? Oh, there you are. Yeah. I see you. Nice work, man. Really got to say, obviously, motivated guy.
Thanks.
The only thing I would do if we were going to publish this, because it's so close to professional, is the competition between this beautiful package and the text. Watch this. Here it comes. Is very distracting, right? Once they're overlapped, it's hard to see. And part of it is that red ribbon.
Okay.
The red ribbon is competing with the orange text in front of it. The other part of it is maybe the white box is just too bold to stay behind the text. If you were going to actually publish this, you'd have to rework the colors of that package so it stayed in the back. Or have the package slide, move somewhere else so it doesn't fight with the text when the last words come in. Right? But I have to say, other than that last part where they start to compete, it's particularly good. Really one of the best.
Thanks.
This one is so clean and clear and simple. I really got to say, it feels very authentic. I mean, the only thing that's a little less sure is the flashing stars at the end, because it's a little surprisingly fast. The typography is excellent. And I want to see Joe. Are you here, Joseph? again, sometimes I invite
Yeah.
people to do the YouTube video because life is complex. It's not really for the sake of the artist who did it. I want to back up though and take this a step further, and then I think I'm going to drop it. The bird project was difficult, and I kind of say though, you guys did the best ones that I've had so far. So I'm pretty optimistic. This is a fun one. It got so many birds there and a kind of fun landscape. I'm really pretty pleased with it. Just want to see if Zach is here. Here's Jataro's. This is brave, right? He's doing the trick with the landscape we did today. There's one problem with the GIF though, and it'd be very easy to fix. When he made the GIF, there's a little button that says transparency, and he had it checked. So this area here is showing us the checkerboard that means transparent. If it was unchecked, that would have been white, which is probably what the artist was seeing in the program. But I just love the combination of movements. So there's so many things moving and it's still quiet and rather believable. Jataro, where are you? Is it odd or something? I'm only showing work, and oh, there you are, Jataro. Nicely done, man. Really like it. Again, next time you make a GIF though, look for that little checkbox that says transparency. Uncheck it. You don't really want anything to be transparent.
Yeah, I know. Actually,
Does that make sense to you?
yeah, I actually don't even know why.
I'm unchecking mute so you could talk to me. Oh, sorry. I'm wrong. We're both checking it.
Yep.
Mute's on now. Can't hear you. I'm not touching it.
Okay, I turned it off. Okay, so yeah.
All right. I don't know if
this
you're trying
GIF
to
was
communicate with me or not.
this GIF.
Anyway, Jataro, good work.
Thank
Move
you.
forward.
Can you not hear him?
Boy, fire is so hard to do. Nassim Bar, that was like nervy. And you've noticed at the end though, again, we see transparency at the end. So I'm going to say the same thing I just said. When you export, please don't check transparency. Hey, Tiffany, you can interrupt me. Are you trying to communicate something to me?
Oh, can you hear her, Professor?
Can you hear?
Tiffany?
Can you hear?
I don't think.
Are you not hearing me?
No, I can hear you. You can't hear
you.
me.
Okay. You know something? I did this twice this week. I missed the high technology and didn't notice I touched the mute button on my own computer. Sorry, Wei Ming, you were trying to talk to me before. Everybody, sorry about that, guys. I hear you now.
You can hear?
Now I can, yes.
Okay. Because Jataro was trying to talk to you, and I was like,
Jataro, I'm sorry. That was totally me. My mute button was down. I just need a break like you guys do too. So we're not going to go much further. So anyway, about this one here, I would turn off that feature, and also the layers that have the sky and the mountains must be a few frames shorter than at least the fire, since the fire hangs out by itself. So that means the other layers are too short. I really love the behavior of the birds though, and the different colors on them. Just really nicely done in that regard, especially. All right. I'm really, in terms of the artists are mostly missing what I have to say right now, but at least the crowd could, the rest of us could benefit from it. This is just so ambitious. There's just so much going on, and the thing with this one is it's got a lot of nice ingredients, but there's too much simultaneous movement. So it's really hard to know what to look at. They maybe should take turns, maybe the bird passes by and then the boat or something like that. Everything moving at once is difficult, but I particularly love the flapping of the wings on the bird though. Look at that. Really nicely done. Nicely drawn bird in general. Nicely done movement, but Wei Ming, nice work.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But do you hear what I'm saying about too much movement at once?
Yeah, I know that before I was put there, I was thinking there were too much.
It isn't that there's too much, it's there's too much at once.
it's just competing for the attention.
Absolutely.
Okay. I will
That's
fix
really
it.
the problem. No, you could fix it if you like. You're going to get a high grade anyway, but it's probably good for you to fix it so you could feel the timing yourself.
Okay.
You'll see how that works. It's like I used to do this a lot also. More, and then And then after a while, I realized most important actions have to star somehow. So if there's other movement, it has to be subtle somehow, or none. One thing, then the next, then the next. And the eye could take that more than this. You know, it's not so much quantity as simultaneity. If everything's happening at once, you want to scatter your timing a little bit. I really like a lot of this, though. Really, I have to say, the bird especially. Look at this bird too. Really nice bird, but Kayla, very subtle. I love the drawing and the simple flapping of the wings. You know, also the kind of the landscape, the clouds especially, show some love. Good going, Kayla. I particularly like that bird. Kayla, are you using a drawing tablet, or did you do it right here? And you could chat us if your mic's not happening. Kayla, use a drawing tablet and Illustrator too, right? So you know we're gonna make people want drawing tablets, and they are really cool. I have to admit, and I know some teachers work at places where you have to have one. I've just done so much work without it that I want to spend some time about how to do that. But I do like my XP pen. That's my $200 tablet, I think it was, which in terms of tablets is pretty cheap. It's very satisfying though. Folks, people are tired. I think I'm going to drop this. At some point, I'm going to pull out favorites. I wanted people just to see the whole range, and you could see that we're getting somewhere. You know, the only thing I want to say before I let people go is, you know, there's so many skills before you could really tell a story, you know, and I think that's what most people want to do. And even if it was a super simple story, you know, it's somebody, you know, goes to feed their baby, then they go out front to get their bicycle, the bicycle's gone, and the next scene they look out the window and the baby's riding the bicycle. You know, there's like three main scenes. What's that?
Professor, can you see mine just to see like, just to like say what you think about it?
Which one? In which folder?
It's that one, the last one.
Oh, really? Did I miss one?
No.
I'm sorry, Joseph. I see it there. I didn't mean to do that. I thought I got through them. Oh, I'm so glad I didn't skip this one. There's a couple things he's doing that I completely love. For one, the simple drawing of the bird, which focuses so much on the flap of the wings, is just working great. And notice where the bird coasts. You know, the wings go down and coast a little bit. I love that. But that's not all. The scale of the bird works incredibly well. He's so small in the distance, comes forward and gets big. And notice the way the clouds move. They're also going on the same diagonal off into the distance. And what's best of all is the bird moves right through the clouds, right? So there are two, it looks like two clouds behind him, seems to me, and one in front. So there had to be different layers to pull that off.
Yeah.
And it really makes us believe it. That would have been.
Alyssa wants you to show hers too.
Oh, I meant to show the whole folder, so I'm going to do that, and then we'll stop there. But Joseph, got to say, huge thumbs up. I mean, you spent your time on things that were really, really useful. You know, I'm very much limiting the foreground lately, right? Always the actors in the middle, any backgrounds behind them. You know, you got more complicated than that. Very convincing depth for 2D animation. Really smart stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I want to go back in the folder though, because I want to just check here. I really didn't realize I'd skipped so many.
Professor, so I have a question.
You do? Okay, before I show another one, please ask.
So I don't see my homework in that. So I think I did send a homework.
Really? Let me take a quick look, right? And then we're going to come back. I want to look at this, but I want to make sure that I got that. So I'm just searching you in the drive. What number were we just looking at? I forgot myself. Was that 6? 8?
Yeah.
So I never got your assignment 8, right? And you could send it to me. Otherwise, it would be showing up.
Okay, thank you.
You know, right now. So just.
Is it not right there? Is it
right
not the second one? It's the second one.
That's number 6.
Oh, that's homework.
Were we just looking? Let's take a look. I think maybe we just got confused with the number. Yeah. Okay. My fault. So you want to, Ming Lang, don't worry about it. I do have it. You said 8.
Oh no, that's the leaf assignment, isn't it? Right?
Is it? Folks, let's just look at the animation right now. I'll take
Oh,
care of it.
I don't think so. It's this.
Okay. So that's right. Yours says 6, but it's a bird. So did you have a different bird for number 8? Because if you
Oh,
did, I
yes.
didn't get it. All right. So in that case, you will have to send it to me, and I'll make sure to give you credit.
Okay.
You
you.
know something? I just want to check something, and we saw this because I lost track. So just give me a minute. Saw that. Saw this. Saw this. That. Give this a moment. So here's Callista's, and you know, again, thing I love about your work, Callista, is you use these different techniques, and somehow they just feel right together. I love the rendered branches of that tree. You know, they're just beautiful, and the bird is simpler. And very often animators do that, right? Because it's hard to move the simple stuff. Jacob, I'm going to look at yours also. Promise. You don't let me leave without doing that. But the simple bird, she adds the ribbon on it, and even the ribbon is moving, leaves are falling. But for me, it's like the beautiful sky, which feels so painterly, and the branches, which feel so painterly, are working so well with the simpler drawings that are focusing on the motion. And of course, the branches are moving too, so this must be a windy day. It's really, really nice. You know, I think again, if you were going to move a project like this further, since you were so ambitious as to have the bird come down for a landing, and you know, I don't know, might want to look at some MyBridge, search MyBridge bird, learn a little bit more about how the bird might move, because I think you've got the ability to do even more complex motion. And of course, you know, the movie clip, the graphic symbol approach might not work if the bird had to move in different ways as it came down to the branch. But I have to say, I really, really like this. Ballista, well done. All right, I want to come back. I want to again, you know, we're going to look at this folder for today. Just nice, just really nice. There's so much to say about this one. I love the landscape. You know, the colors are just looking beautiful. I want everyone to notice that he chose not to have strokes on anything. And it's one of the reasons why these well-chosen colors are working that well. You know, they don't have unnecessary lines out of habit. You know, it's color-based. Also, look at the way the bird is flying, which is so specific. We're looking at this bird on a complex angle. It's not a profile, it's not a front view, right? We're looking at it from the back, and it really, really works with his intention of having that bird travel into the distance diagonally. I like the specific flapping of the wings. It just rocks. You know, the one thing that I would probably want to do on this one, just want to see if, is the clouds are the most artificial part, you know, because they're in a strangely straight line and they're almost glued up to the ceiling of the image, which feels, you know, very unlikely, if not impossible. So I like the movement and all, and even the shape tweening going on, which is kind of cool. But they're equally spaced, they're equally sized, they're on one single horizontal line, so they don't have the naturalness of the rest of the image. But I got to say, I really love this one, even with that small limitation. This one here, you know, is very, very fast, kind of random. I really do like the bold landscape quite a bit. It reminds me a little bit of the way I imagine the mountains of China. You know, they're rounder, you know, wide and smooth. The bird's a little hard to follow. You know, it's definitely not the strongest part of it. Really, I liked your type animation, you know, better. But you know, it may just take some, you know, a lot of work to get the hang of it. You know, this is not an easy class. This is kooky, oh my, and I love eccentric stuff. You know, it's just like, it doesn't look like anything I've seen anyway. The bird itself is just, you know, bizarre and funny. I think he's a vulture. I love the crazy landscape and the bold colors. Again, this artist chose not to work with strokes. Strokes are very great. It could be great, but I think for colors like this and this kind of thing, this was a good choice. You know, it's a lot of simultaneous movement again, but I think it works pretty well. I guess the thing I'd want to see the most on this one would be more more flapping going on, so I could really, believe it a little bit more. But I love the boldness, and if someone's kicking in right now, the colors are really there. There's a lot of pluses on this one, Jake. All right, this we saw. I'm sorry that I skipped you guys. I thought everyone was bored, and then everybody wanted to see them. Fun landscape. So again, I don't know why people like to do that, clouds in a row like that. You'd be surprised if you saw that in the sky. It's a really fun landscape, very simple houses, very geometric, but fun. The colors really doing a lot of work on this one. Very elaborate footbridge. So I wonder if that was taken in from another program or not. I'm gonna, which I don't mind. I'm just sort of curious. So I'm gonna ask Ming Lang. Ming Lang, is the bridge something you painted elsewhere or something you borrowed? I'm okay either way.
Oh, it's borrowed.
It's borrowed. It's interesting. Yeah. So I like the look of this a lot. I want to say something quick to you. Do you see how this one house touches the house behind it? And that's not wrong. And sure enough, that could happen in a photograph, but it flattens the image, right? Especially since they're the same size. You might have gotten away with it if this house is bigger than the one behind it. But right now, since it's touching it, it flattens the image. It almost creates the illusion that one's sitting on the roof of the other. I'd probably just separate them and maybe make this one smaller. But look at the bird. Really confident bird. Nice drawing of the bird, confident flapping. Just a good project.
Thank you.
Really nice project. I feel like I did skip one, and I just promised someone that I wouldn't. Did I skip any of you guys? Did I? So, some of you did really good work that are not in these particular folders. They're in older folders, and we are a half an hour early. So just ask me, would you like to see a little bit more, and then we'll call it quits? Just get a peek.
I have to leave soon, Professor, though.
Do you, even though we're half an hour early?
Yeah, I was about to say that. I was like, oh, lucky day.
You know what, though? You work really hard. You've more than earned the support. So you take off when you have to. I totally understand, Joseph. No worries at all. Would anyone else like to see some more? Or should I save some? Any thoughts? Harold, any thoughts? Haven't heard from you today. How you doing, Harold?
I'm gonna leave now, Professor. Thank you.
All right, get going, Joseph. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
All right, everybody's tired. You know what? I think I better call it quits. 4-hour class is intense. I'm definitely rethinking ways to make my class a little bit more gentle. Folks, I hope you enjoyed today's material. Real important stuff. And we're going to be working with related ideas for the rest of the semester. A lot of what I want to show you can be done on the main timeline by, for example, like pose, 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 pose. We got a 4-pose project here. Or done in graphic symbols. As you could see, they're more easy to recycle, to change timing without having to add or take away. I do want to give you a peek at something before I let you go. And this is something I included in today's folder for anyone who wants to check it out. Don't feel like you have to. In the folder was one additional subfolder called samples, FLAs and SWIFTs. So I supplied a few different versions. I'm just going to open that up that you could keep. Right? Please don't publish these anywhere, right? But you could keep them. And you'll notice on my screen, I have them set up with yellow dots for the SWIFTs and purple dots for the FLAs. You might want to look at the SWIFTs first to see if you want to bother looking at the FLA, right? So I'm going to actually separate these by kind for a minute. So I've got this SWIFT called 4 poses. This is what we did today. And then I got 2 versions with 8 poses. And here are the FLAs for anyone who wants to study them. Just give it a quick look though. This is the 4 pose one, right? It's virtually what we did today, right? Really nothing different. We didn't focus at all on the arms today though, so that might be an interesting thing to examine. You know, I got the FLA in there for anyone who wants to check it out. This is an 8 pose one. This is the same animation except for, I added more. His legs look smoother, his head's bopping up and down. I got to admit, figurative animation is more of my work lately. but in the past it was mostly motion graphics. So like a lot of people coming that route, I would typically work with 4 poses, but this was fun. So, you know, I may do more, 8 poses. So that FLA is there if anyone wanted to go inside the movie clip and see. Here's another 8 pose version, right? This one here, he's got a more personality. His head's not only bopping, but he's looking up in the air. Well, this is an odd one. I put his head on its own layer. The head is tweened. And it's just sort of moving around to respond to the rest of the body. And in some of the animations that I'm recommending, you'll hear them talk about when the body seems tallest and shortest while you're walking. I'm going to get a look at the handout and then let everybody go. This video should be online later today or by tomorrow at the latest. Here are the instructions of using the Illustrator file, kind of broken down in parts. And we got in the peak of the student work. Yes, that's everything I needed to tell you. Yes, I think so. Any last questions for me? No, guys, again, I do appreciate your exhaustion. I'm sorry if I sound pushy to try to get responses from you. It does make me a better teacher and the class more engaging when I know what you're thinking, but I do respond to your exhaustion. I am so tired. Oh my God. Same reasons as you. School, except for I never got out of school. I've been in school for 40 years, so I'm more tired, right? Don't think my job's easier than yours as a student. So not. Especially your class. Again, everybody, good luck with your work. Good luck keeping your steam. Stay safe, stay healthy. Let's not forget about the pandemic. You know, take breaks from it when you're inside and safe. You know, we need a dimensional life. Even take breaks from politics. Next time we see each other, we'll probably have, we'll know who the president is, whether he's new or not. If there are no last questions, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to stick around a couple minutes, talk to Tiffany for a moment or two. See you, everybody. Tiffany, you don't mind sticking around, I'm sure, for a little bit? Excellent. All right, folks, thanks for sharing all your excellent work and applying yourself. It's motivating to me as well. I'm inspired. All right, I'm going to stop my sharing. I'm going to say a quick goodbye to YouTube. Goodbye, YouTube.